Chapter 123. After the apprentice left, Steward Zhang still had a lot of questions in his heart. Why did the young master spend so much money to get someone to do this? Why did he have to seal his mouth? Could it be that this thing was related to something important? After thinking for a while, Steward Zhang still couldn't figure it out, so he had to give up. Thinking that the young master wanted to get a few rabbits, he immediately ordered someone to arrange for them to be bought. He didn't know what was so good about these rabbits. The rabbits were brought first. Zhang Xiaobao called Wang Wan to the place where the rabbits were kept. He said to Wang Wan, "Didn't you always ask why I can dodge the sniper's attack? In fact, there are only two reasons. One is that I love life too much. I have to live to fulfill the last wish of the headmaster. So when I encounter danger, I always have a premonition. The other reason is that I learned from an old man in prison. He asked me to watch the rabbits. When the rabbits change directions while running, they give people an illusion. During the process of changing directions, you can feel several postures. One is to move left and right, one is to suddenly accelerate, one is to suddenly stop, and the last one is to turn over." Turn over? Stupid. Usually when rabbits run like this, it's when they encounter danger. It turns over and waits to be caught? In the beginning, Wang Wan listened carefully and nodded from time to time. However, when she heard the later part, she felt that something was wrong. Zhang Xiaobao smiled and said, "When a rabbit turns over, it's not waiting to be caught. At that time, it's a fight to the death. Whether it lives or dies, it's decided in an instant. When a rabbit kicks an eagle, it can kick the eagle to death. Usually there are three situations. One is that the eagle doesn't kick and the rabbit dies. Two is that the eagle has already caught the rabbit, and the rabbit and the eagle die together. The last one is that the eagle is kicked away. As for whether it would die or not, that would depend on the eagle's body. Basically, an eagle that was kicked by a rabbit wouldn't live for long, even if it didn't die immediately. What I learned was not only how to avoid snipers, but also how to deal with enemies and paralyze them." This time Wang Wan did not refute. She knew about this as well. Although it was rare, if it really did happen, eagle would definitely not be able to survive. Even the weakest thing could kill a strong enemy. This could also be called an asymmetrical war. As long as I have a few atomic bombs and hide them well, you won't dare to do anything to me. The smaller the country, the greater the deterrence. Xiaobao, what does your master do? They actually let you observe these things? Wang Wan was now curious about the people in Zhang Xiaobao's prison. Nothing much. He's more than 120 years old. He used to be a little monk on the mountain. After that incident, everything was broken. He was also an orphan, so he could only walk around and see. He was satisfied with just a bite of food. After that, he started to read people's fortunes. Oh, so he didn't calculate correctly and was seen through, Wang Wan said. Wrong. He was locked up because he calculated correctly. If he didn't calculate correctly, he would be fined some money. He had to read the fortunes of a provincial capital's executive deputy mayor. In the end, he said that the evils of heaven can be forgiven, but the evils brought on by oneself are the hardest to bear. Zhang Xiaobao explained. He said bad things about others, so he was locked up? If it were me, I would also lock him up. Wang Wan also disliked this kind of thing. Zhang Xiaobao looked at Wang Wan and shook his head. No, the executive deputy mayor was taken away. There was a set time and place to explain the problem. In the end, the deputy mayor wasn't fighting alone. He had a small family. When the people in the family heard about this, they blamed my master. Why didn't he help when he knew of the danger and sent him to prison? Oh, I see. Forget it. Let's watch the rabbits. Wang Wan couldn't do anything about this matter. If she hadn't come over and knew about this matter, she might have done something. She would only get people out of prison. She couldn't attack people's families. Otherwise, her family would also stop her. After all, she wouldn't get any practical benefits from attacking others. It wasn't worth it to make enemies for no reason. She understood that society was so realistic. From ancient times to the present, from her own country to foreign countries, nothing had changed. When the presidential election could be controlled, what was democracy? Wang Wan observed the rabbits while Zhang Xiaobao asked people to look for coal. This thing had been discovered long ago, but he didn't know where to find it. When it was used, it wasn't very active. However, he wanted it. Heat, happiness and disaster needed it. Xiao Bao, is this rabbit sick? Why doesn't it like to move? I've been staring at it for an hour, and it hasn't moved much. Wang Wan turned to look at Zhang Xiaobao and asked, I'm not a doctor. I don't know if it's sick. There are so many rabbits, why do you have to stare at it? I didn't find you a rabbit to let you learn medicine, but to let you observe how their center of gravity changes when they run. After hearing Wang Wan's words, Zhang Xiaobao felt a little helpless. At the same time, he complained to the housekeeper. Why did you get a sick rabbit? Well, I won't look at it. Let's look at the other rabbits. Let the veterinarian on Zhuangzi come over and take a look. At least it can't die in front of me. It's so pitiful. If it really can't make it, remember to leave the rabbit skin for me. I want to make a small cushion. Wang Wan said with a look of pity. Zhang Xiaobao and Pomegranate heard the whole sentence and didn't know what to say. If they had to use a word to describe it, it would be bloody kindness. Pomegranate had long been numb, but Zhang Xiaobao felt a little scared. After sleeping together for so many days, they were still alive. He had to say that they were lucky. Xiaobao, what's wrong with your eyes? I pity it because it's still alive, but it's dead. Are you still going to pity it? Then don't sleep with me at night. Be careful. Wang Wan glanced at Zhang Xiaobao and knew what he was thinking. She felt that she was not understood, so she said angrily. Zhang Xiaobao naturally understood this principle, so he quickly explained, I don't mean anything else. I just feel that your way is correct. I'm actually thinking that if this rabbit meat can't spread any diseases, we can eat it together with other meat. When rabbit meat is put together with other people's meat, the taste will change. Another morning arrived. The apprentice brought the drawing over in the morning and promised that he wouldn't tell anyone about it, and would forget about it immediately. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief and leave. After Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan knew about this matter, they hurriedly ate breakfast and came to the place where the drawing was placed. The two of them looked at it and were satisfied. It's a pity that we don't have corn. Otherwise it would be better to use that to make it. Wang Wan touched this thing with her hand and said regretfully, but we have rice and soybeans. These two things can also be used to make popcorn. Why don't we make some soybeans ourselves? We can just buy rice from outside and sell it for 1 copper coin per big bag. Isn't that cheap? Zhang Xiaobao was also happy at the side. Seeing that Wang Wan insisted on corn, he suggested big popcorn. A big bag of rice wasn't much in practical use. However, when it was sold it looked like a lot. 1 bag of rice for 1 copper coin. Not only would people not think it was expensive, but they would also think it was cheap. If they wanted to make more money, they could glue the big popcorn with sugar and cut it into small cubes. 1 copper coin for 2 cubes, which were sweet and crispy. Wang Wan didn't object to Zhang Xiaobao's price. Unlike salt and grains, popcorn wasn't a necessity for survival. If they were willing to buy it, they wouldn't think it was expensive. 1 copper coin for 1 big bag could last them for half a day. It really wasn't too expensive. Now that you agree, we can start to make the popcorn. I don't know how much the pressure resistance of this thing is. Find someone to hide far away and try it. Don't let anything happen. When Zhang Xiaobao saw Wang Wan's expression, he knew that she also agreed to sell the popcorn at 1 copper coin per bag. 1 bag of popcorn was already a lot. It couldn't be 0. 5 copper coins per bag, right? When the popcorn was made, they had to find someone to experiment with it. They asked someone to find a long bamboo pole and insert it into the cradle behind the popcorn machine. They used this to shake it. Every once in a while, they would ask someone wearing thick clothes to pop the popcorn over there to see how the popcorn was. If it was a little off, then they would continue to add time. If it was just right, then they would remember this time. It would be the same in the future. After several experiments, they finally found the right time. No one was injured, which made Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan very happy. After popping more than a dozen pots in a row, they filled 2 gunny bags. Apart from leaving some for the 2 main courtyards to eat, they were given to the farmers to taste. In total, there were only a few caddies of rice. The cost was low, so they didn't care how much they gave away. The person in charge of popcorn knew that it was a secret without needing to be told. He brought the popcorn to his place and wouldn't let others see it easily. The farmers didn't know that the cost of popcorn was low. When they ate the sweet and crispy popcorn, they felt that the main house had given them a lot of money. In their eyes, popcorn became precious. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan also had a big box in front of them. Inside was a big box filled with popcorn. Both of them couldn't stop eating. It wasn't because the popcorn was delicious, but because they had a nostalgic feeling while eating. Xiao Hong and the others have been gone for a long time. I don't know if they encountered any trouble. Until now they haven't sent back any news. It's the same for County Magistrate Chang. This feeling of not being able to get any news is really uncomfortable. Zhang Xiaobao put his head into the box. After eating a mouthful of popcorn, he raised his head and said helplessly, "That's right. This information is just information. Whoever has more information, and who has more information in time, will have more ways to deal with it." What's that saying again? Oh, it's what I want to know the most is what's on the other side of the mountain. Wang Wan could also understand Zhang Xiaobao's feelings. What can be used to transmit information quickly? I'm talking about the current world. Zhang Xiaobao said to himself, "Carrier pigeons. Unfortunately, I don't know how to raise one. I didn't learn how to do that," Wang Wan replied. Chapter 124. While Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan were feeling anxious, Xiao Hong was also feeling the same. Originally, the people they brought were specifically responsible for delivering messages back and forth. Who would have thought that along the way the chickens, ducks, and geese would lay eggs as they ate? Those who had been affected by the disaster were envious. With so many chickens, if they could bring them back, their families would not have to worry about food and drink. They felt that it was impossible to steal a whole group of chickens, but stealing one or two shouldn't be too big of a problem. Thus, along the way there were always people who wanted to steal chickens, ducks, and geese. Those who came with Xiao Hong and cherries did not dare to relax for a moment. They took turns guarding the chickens, so that there was no one left to go back and report. Even so, they still felt that there were not enough people. Those who wanted to steal, regardless of whether it was day or night, were looking for an opportunity. Some even knew how to hide and not be discovered, but some actually brazenly followed behind the group, wanting to find a chance to steal. This made Xiao Hong feel a lot of pressure along the way. The chickens, ducks, and geese were not lost, but there were fewer eggs. These things did not care where they were. They would lay as long as there were eggs. Those who followed them would steal the eggs or rather snatch the eggs. Xiao Hong saw this more than once. Just as her chickens finished laying eggs and were still warm, there would be people following behind to hold the eggs in their hands. When the people on the Zhuangzi asked for the eggs, the people on the Zhuangzi would say that the eggs were his. Why were they still warm? Of course it was because he kept them in his arms. People like them were scared and said that they would report it to the authorities, but they were not afraid. At that time they would have already eaten the eggs. Besides, Xiao Hong did not have the leisure to do so. She thought of getting people to beat them up, but seeing how each of them looked like they were malnourished according to the young master, she could not bear to do so. She could only endure it. After hurrying for a while, they finally arrived at their destination, Hunan Province, Luoyang. As soon as Xiao Hong arrived with so many chickens, someone came to greet them. The Prime Minister arrived a few days in advance. Originally, he wanted to take a look and organize people to eliminate the locusts. Then, he would capture a few officials to take care of them. After that, he could go back. There were many things in the imperial court that he needed to deal with. But at this time, County Magistrate Chang arrived, saying that he had come himself with 5,000 dan of grain. He wanted to give it to the Prime Minister for free to help with the disaster relief. 5,000 dan of grain was not a lot for such a large place, but it was still hundreds of thousands of caddies of grain. If it was cooked into porridge, how many people could eat it? This was especially true for those who had not harvested a single grain. This was life-saving food. It was a life-saving gift. Normally, with Prime Minister Yao Chang's status, there was no need for him to receive a 7th-ranked county magistrate. But the grain made him moved. When he arrived, there were already people selling grain. The price was 3 times the usual price. If he wanted to arrest them, he would say that they were hoarding. Those people had backgrounds, or they had transported the grain from other places. They spent a lot of money to transport the grain, so the price was really not expensive. Therefore, when County Magistrate Cheng Lingxiang saw the Prime Minister, he trembled and said a few words. Then he began to claim credit for Zhangzhe Zhuangzi. When the Prime Minister heard this, there was no expression on his face, but there were waves in his heart. So much grain was actually provided by a zhuangzi. In addition, that zhuangzi had sold a lot of soy sauce to lower the price and was willing to pay to buy a worthless mountain to support Sanshui County. This merit was not small at all. According to the county magistrate of Sanshui County, that zhuangzi had shown auspicious signs and made meritorious contributions when renting the mountain. He had been granted 100 families' land. Although it had not been returned yet, he had taken out so many things at once. It was enough to offset the taxes of those years. County Magistrate Chung looked at the Prime Minister's face as he spoke. His expression did not change, but his eyes flashed a few times. He knew that he should put in more effort, so he continued, "Sir, in addition to these, Zhangzhe Zhuangzi also bought a lot of soybeans from outside. There was a problem with the soybeans in Sanshui County. It was all thanks to Zhangzhe Zhuangzi's soybeans that the county was stabilized. Sir, the locust plague is so severe that Zhangzhe Zhuangzi heard about it and has already sent people to bring over 10,000 domestic animals. They will be here soon to help this place eat the locusts. Those chickens, ducks, and geese are still laying eggs. Who knows how many will be lost along the way." The old master of the Zhang family often says that they cannot disappoint their ancestors. Their ancestors could fight for the country, so they can also share the country's worries. Even if they use up all of their savings, it is worth it. At the very least, they still have 100 families' land. If this land is also taken away, even if they have to farm their own land, they will still do their utmost to do something for the country. Sir, Sanshui County is also suffering from a disaster. There is a great drought. Zhangzhe Zhuangzi gave the little water they had to the neighboring Gu family's Zhuangzi to let them plow in the spring. It is all because of this lowly official's incompetence that I am unable to protect the safety of the people in the county." After County Magistrate Chung said these words, Prime Minister Yao, who had been silent all this time, had no choice but to open his mouth. If it was some powerful family, perhaps doing this could be classified as putting on an act. However, that Zhuangzi was able to take out so many things. No matter what, it could not be said that they were seeking fame or putting on an act. Hundreds of thousands of caddies of grain, and nearly 10,000 domestic animals had all come. The 100 families' land did not seem to be comparable to these things. Those domestic animals that laid eggs with such haste, it was easy to imagine how many fewer eggs would be laid. That was all money. Buying soybeans to stabilize a county, producing auspicious signs, and giving water to others could all be considered fake. After all, he did not see it. However, the grain and domestic animals could not be faked. If there was, there was. If there wasn't, there wasn't. I heard that County Magistrate Cheng's county has produced auspicious signs twice. On the 30th day of the previous year, he personally delivered grain and oil to the common people. During the great disaster, he was busy all day. During the spring plowing, he came up with a new type of plow named Tsuyuan. From this, it can be seen that County Magistrate Chung is truly a good official who makes decisions for the common people. Yao Chong was indeed very busy. However, no matter how busy he was, when he received people, he had to have some information in hand. Otherwise, it would not be justifiable. After saying these things one by one, he was quite impressed with County Magistrate Chung. County Magistrate Chung did not feel the slightest bit surprised. He had long known that the imperial court knew about his matters here. All of this was driven by Zhangzhe Zhuangzi behind the scenes. Naturally, he wanted to fight for more benefits for Zhangzhe Zhuangzi. Therefore, he said, "Sir, you may not know, but those things given out on the 30th day of the previous year were all sent to the Yamen by Zhangzhe Zhuangzi. As for the Tsuyuan plow, this official only mentioned it, and Zhangzhe Zhuangzi's people made it. Without Zhangzhe Zhuangzi, there would not be the current Sanshui County." In the end, County Magistrate Chung said such frightening words. Without Zhangzhe Zhuangzi, there would not be the current Sanshui County. This was not a small matter. Yao Zai responded and did not say anything else. However, in his heart he kept thinking, Zhangzhe Zhuangzi, what kind of Zhuangzi is this? Every matter in Sanshui County seems to be related to Zhangzhe Zhuangzi. Could it be that the Zhuangzi is muddle-headed? Sir, this official still needs to go and help receive those domestic animals. When I arrive, I believe that I will be able to clear out a peaceful place for this place. County Magistrate Chung had said all that he needed to say. At this time he had to leave. And that's fine. Then County Magistrate Cheng will have to work a bit harder. Zhangzhe Zhuangzi is not bad. Prime Minister Yao said lightly. These words made County Magistrate Cheng happy. The Prime Minister, such a high official, actually praised Zhangzhe Zhuangzi. When Zhangzhe Zhuangzi's domestic animals arrived, that shocking scene would be remembered by everyone. He gave his thanks again and then turned to leave. As soon as County Magistrate Cheng left, Prime Minister Yao shouted, "Someone investigate Zhangzhe Zhuangzi for me. Ask the commoners and the surrounding villages. Ask the villagers of Zhangzhe Zhuangzi carefully, and see if it is as Cheng Lingxiang said." Someone at the door responded and then quickly left, leaving Yao Cheng sitting there and carefully thinking about Zhangzhe Zhuangzi's matter. He had already guessed a few things from County Magistrate Cheng's words. Zhangzhe Zhuangzi wanted to protect the 100 households' food, but the price was really too high. After doing so many good things, if they were exchanged for money and he wanted to use the 100 households' food to earn it back, it wouldn't be enough even after several decades. Why was this so? Naturally, he didn't know how much importance Zhangzhe Zhuangzi's old master attached to this. He also didn't know that the Zhang family's old master had an incredible grandson. In order to help his grandfather achieve this wish, he had made countless arrangements. One matter after another added up. It could be said that he could turn his hand over the clouds and turn his hand over the rain. Not only could he obtain the benefits of reputation, he also had a lot of money. If he knew that Zhangzhe Zhuangzi was the one who sold the other several 100,000 grains for 3 times the original price, who knew what he would think? If he knew that those poultry had come to eat locusts and lay eggs in exchange for things to go back and operate, how would he evaluate them? These weren't important. What was important was that they had done good things and many people knew about it. Cherries, who hadn't been granted an audience, hadn't been idle these past few days. She paid a visit to a few low-ranking officials and had them pass on a message. When the time came, Zhangzhe Zhuangzi would provide them with a lot of eggs in exchange for things that they didn't need for the time being. When Xiao Hong arrived with the team, Cherries, a few local officials, and County Magistrate Cheng were waiting to welcome them. It was a big scene. Perhaps they were full, or perhaps they felt a trace of unusual atmosphere. Those poultry all obediently lined up in a messy formation under the lead of Fluffy Goose. They swayed as they walked on the road under the gaze of others. There were nearly 10,000 birds lined up for 2 miles. That piece of land made people dizzy. It was really shocking. Some well-informed people knew that these poultry were all owned by the same Zhuangzi. They couldn't say whether they were envious or jealous. How much could the eggs they laid every day be sold for? "Stop, Fluffy Goose." Xiao Hong came in front of Cherries and County Magistrate Cheng, and gave the order to the goose at the front. At this time, Fluffy Goose really showed respect. It stopped and called back a few times. Those chickens, ducks, and geese also stopped. This scene was even more shocking than before. Whose chickens, ducks, and geese could be so obedient? How were these still poultry? They were clearly like people. Prime Minister Yao was also watching. He really didn't dare to believe the scene before his eyes. At the same time, he firmly remembered Zhangzhe Zhuangzi in his heart and wanted to see for himself. Chapter 125. In the beginning, the common people in the disaster-stricken area were not willing to help catch the locusts. Some even invited a few larger locusts into their homes. They wanted to raise them, so naturally many of them were raised to death. Prime Minister Yao finally managed to convince the people above and the court officials with great difficulty, but the progress on the ground was not fast. He ordered the local officials to organize manpower several times before there was a slight improvement. Unfortunately, after such a long period of recuperation, the locusts had already increased in number. It made people worry that they would spread to other Taoist palaces. In recent days, the common people had moved to catch the locusts, but the results were not great. Just as Yao Cheng was preparing to issue an even stronger order, Zhangzhe Zhuangzi's army swayed and rushed over. This made his heart feel much more at ease. Xiao Hong greeted Cherries and a few officials, then impatiently directed the poultry to rush into the fields or the wilderness. The chickens, ducks, and geese rushed the entire way. Especially in the last half of the day, they didn't eat anything decent at all. With the lead goose in front of them as an example, one by one they directly rushed forward. Especially those chickens, they spread out their 2 legs, lowered their necks and flapped their wings. They ran very fast. Whenever a locust appeared in front of them, they would take one down. Their small mouths moved, their necks extended, and a locust was swallowed into their stomachs. Those flying locusts were not in a hurry to chase. They only wanted to eat the ones in front of them first. The local people usually gathered to catch locusts at night. They lit a fire, and the locusts would desperately throw themselves into the fire. During the day, the only tool they had was a bag in front of a long pole. They used this to catch the locusts. In the beginning, the speed was a bit faster, but as the number of locusts in the bag increased, they had to deal with them. Naturally, it would take quite a bit of time. These chickens, ducks, and geese were different. Once they caught them, they would eat them directly. If those locusts flew in front of the poultry team and continued to fly, they could be considered lucky for the time being. Those that flew in the wrong direction directly fell towards their natural enemies below. Without waiting for them to land, they would be eaten from the air by these sensitive poultry. Humans and some animals had to rely on stomach acid to digest their food. Poultry, on the other hand, had to grind their food with peons. There was sand in the peons that they usually ate, so their digestion speed was much faster. Some of them even pooped while eating. Especially when they were rushing all the way, they were always in a half-hungry state and had lost a lot of weight. At this time, seeing that there was so much food to supplement them, they ate with all their might. The need for food had reached an almost abnormal level for these domestic fowls that were raised like this. It could eat 2/3 of its body weight or the same amount of food in a day. One could imagine the number of locusts that such a large chicken would need to eat. There was a chicken that was already powerful enough to fly more than 2 meters high. When it ate the locusts, its body also consumed energy. After only half an hour, the chickens, ducks, and geese had become small dots in people's eyes. They passed by the fields, and there were not many grains on them to begin with. People did not eat such things, but there was a lot of meat in front of them. At the same time, wherever they swept, they could not find any locusts. Occasionally, there would be a few pieces of locust wings that were not swallowed, mixed in with the chicken feathers and blown away by the wind. The prime minister, the officials, and the people who came to watch the show were all shocked by this scene. So many poultry rushed over and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Not only did they eat the locusts, but they also left a lot of feces along the way. Seeing this, the people were happy. They would save a lot of trouble in the coming year, and would not have to waste time looking for fertilizer. When Cherry saw this scene, she remembered that it was the young master's order and immediately started to recruit people from among the people. Under the supervision of the people who came from the inner courtyard, she recruited some people to be responsible for picking up eggs. Every 50 eggs picked up, they could take one home. This could be accumulated. If they picked up 50 eggs in one go, they could directly exchange them for one egg. If they picked up 150 eggs in 2 days, they could also exchange them for one egg after a few days. Or they could not exchange the eggs and directly exchange them for other things. Cherries would think of a way to get them. There were nearly 10,000 poultry, except for a few males, and the rest were all females. There were also many roosters on Zhuangzi, but they were not sent. Usually they could lay more than 6,000 eggs a day. Because of the good food now, they could break through the 7,000 mark. The price they had to pay per day was less than 200 eggs. Originally, Cherries was afraid that the people would not be willing to do it. After all, to pick up the eggs, they would need the poultry to lay them. However, she could not imagine the extent of the people's demand for food. The drought was a foregone conclusion. Even if all the taxes and levies were exempted in the autumn, the local people would not have a good life. Usually they had nothing to do, so they followed behind. Even if they exchanged one egg every 2 days, they would have 15 eggs in a month. These eggs were not much in the past, but in the current situation it was not a small amount. When they heard the price Cherries offered to exchange for other things, the people chose to keep the eggs. The price Cherries offered was the usual exchange rate, but not the price that the people were in urgent need of food. It didn't take long for Cherry to find 100 people. The others who came later didn't have a chance. If there were too many people, they wouldn't be able to get an egg even after a few days. These 100 people were selected from whichever family had the toughest life. That family was chosen. The others who were not selected did not complain when they felt bad. They came from afar to help, and they found the people who lived the worst life. They wanted to scold them, but they could not. They also had their own methods. It was not a big deal that they did not get to pick up the eggs. They began to go to other places to catch locusts. Even the children at home helped. Some of the plants that did not grow food were cut down and made into simple chicken nests. They found cherries and the others to discuss. When night came, they would let the poultry come here to sleep. They even provided locusts for supper. Xiaohong, cherries, and the others were puzzled. They did not understand why these people were so kind. Some people in the inner courtyard came to explain. They said that these people were thinking about the feces. Because this year's harvest was destined to be poor, some livestock owners had to sell their livestock in order to survive. If people ate less, the local fertilizer would be much less next year. In order to have a good harvest next year, they had to think of ways to save feces and wait to be composted. Hearing this, Xiaohong, cherries, and the others pitied the local people. Even if they came to help and make money, Cherries was one of the first people to follow Zhang Xiaobao. She was bold and responsible. She immediately gave orders. Have someone return to the farmstead on a fast horse. Have the farmsteads transport the farmstead's poultry that are also about to lay eggs back here at the fastest speed. Bring the half-grown chicks as well. Tell the farmsteads to compensate them with 1 egg every 2 days. Send all of them here? Compensation? Miss Cherries, this compensation is a little too much. They don't need to raise them so they can save a lot of food. Hearing Cherries' order, a person in the inner courtyard felt that the main family had paid too much. He also knew that the reason why they did not send those poultry here was because they were afraid that it would be difficult to settle the account. In Zhuangzi, there were 234 households in Zhang Xiaobao and Wang family. 196 of them raised chickens, ducks, and geese. They were all hatched by Cherries. Now it was just the first 2 batches that could lay eggs. Listen to me and do as I say. I'll take care of everything. That's not how the accounts are calculated. Farmers raise chickens to get eggs, not to save on feed. They have to be compensated. Hire a carriage and move fast. There's still a lot of land here. It's impossible to eat all of it with just these chickens and ducks. Cherries had already been authorized when she came. She was the most powerful. No matter what decision she made, others had to follow unconditionally. Even if she said to kill all the poultry, others had to do it. If she did something wrong, the young master would take care of it. However, no one dared to disobey. She would beat them up first and bring them back to the main family. Seeing that they could not persuade her, the people in the inner courtyard had to obey. They found a few horses and took another person. At the same time, they changed to a Mercedes-Benz and quickly went back to prepare a carriage and gather the poultry. When the 2 thought of the more than 200 chickens, ducks, and geese in each household, they felt a headache. How many carriages would they need to find to transport them? Looking at the 2 people in Zhangzhe Zhuangzi's swift movements when they jumped on the horses and their horsemanship, Yao Chong glanced at the personal guard beside him. The personal guard immediately said, "Master, those 2 people must be from the military. Looking at the way they jumped on the horses just now, they must have at least 10 years of experience. Looking at their posture when they were riding the horses, they must have been in battle." Yes, I heard from County Magistrate Chang that Zhangzhe Zhuangzi found some people in the inner courtyard. It seems that these 2 were found later. These people usually do some chores, but they can charge and break through the enemy lines at critical times. Go back and check which place they are from. These 2 people are not old yet. Someone must have benefited from them. Yao Chong seemed to be talking to himself. When the dust settled after the 2 left, he turned his eyes to the poultry that he had eaten all the way back from another place. He said to the official beside him, "Record this down. Tonight, I will submit a memorial to the Zhuangzi and Zhang family of Tuqiao village in Sanshui County, Fengzhou. Help the old man of the Zhang family this time. He put in so much effort to get grain and poultry. The local people and officials are all watching. Can't be hidden even if you want to." Yao Chong really did not understand why Zhangzhe Zhuangzi valued the 100 households so much. Since that was the case and they had helped him a lot, he should give them some benefits. If he forced it, it would chill the people. The 10,000 chickens, ducks, and geese were not just for show. The surrounding prefectures and counties would know and send people to invite them to eat the locusts. "Master, I feel that Zhangzhe Zhuangzi is doing this on purpose. He is making a big fuss to force you to give him a reward. Why don't we postpone it? The official also knew that this matter was troublesome. Zhang family and Zhuangzi were using righteousness to pressure others. No one would feel comfortable in this situation. Don't talk nonsense. They moved first. At that time I was not here yet. Everything will depend on what the people who went to investigate have to say. Yao Chong was even more confused. Chapter 126. One day later, the two men sent back by cherries arrived in Zhuangzi. They were only a little slower than the 600-mile rush. They first found the steward and told him about the matter. One of them couldn't help but raise an objection. The steward naturally went to find the young master. Zhang Xiaobao was playing Go with Wang Wan. He was bullied again and again, but he still enjoyed it. Young master, Cherries wants to transport all the domestic poultry raised in the villages in Zhuangzi. Of the two men who came back, one of them is absolutely not allowed to do so. What do you think? Steward Zhang watched the young master play a Go piece and said. Wang Wan was about to play a Go piece when she heard the voice stop. Zhang Xiaobao turned to look at Steward Zhang. He thought for a while and said, let the one who raised the objection stay in Zhuangzi. He doesn't need to go back. Send someone else to replace him. According to Cherries' arrangement, it has to be fast. Well, give those two men 2 kilograms of oil. Steward Zhang didn't understand. Was the young master satisfied with the one who raised the objection, or was he not satisfied? Keeping him here obviously meant that he wasn't satisfied. Why did he give him oil? Young master, the master doesn't have to accommodate his subordinates. What are you? Steward Zhang thought the young master felt that it wasn't good to keep him here and wanted to make up for it. He had to teach the young master how to treat his subordinates. Kindness wasn't the right thing to do. Zhang Xiaobao signaled for Wang Wan to continue playing. He turned his eyes back to the Go board and said to Steward Zhang, I'm not rewarding or punishing him. I just feel that he will disturb Cherries. I'm rewarding them because they worked hard. In the future, arrange a new position for the one who raised the objection. He's not suitable to work with others. Then what position is suitable for him? Steward Zhang couldn't understand the young master's words and asked, That's good. There are many things that you need to take care of. I'll teach you some things. That person is suitable for the position of supervisor, which is the position of censorate. He doesn't need to be correct every time, as long as he can think from a different perspective. There is no such position in Zhuangzi now, but there may be one in a few days. Zhang Xiaobao was in a good mood and gave Steward Zhang some advice. Steward Zhang thought about it and agreed. When he felt that the little Gongzi had thought it through thoroughly, he asked a little worriedly, Little Gongzi, what if this person thinks that he did something wrong and doesn't dare to speak up in the future? In fact, what he wanted to say was that this person thought that he had been punished and became timid from then on. Wouldn't that mean that there was one less useful person? That can only mean that he still needs to learn more. A person who can change at any time is not useful. Let him do more things and practice more. Zhang Xiaobao saw Wang Wan put down a chess piece, so he also put down a chess piece and said to Steward Zhang at the same time. Steward Zhang didn't have anything else to ask. While admiring the little Gongzi's ability, he went back to help arrange things. There were so many poultry that it was impossible to transport all of them with just a few carriages. They had to find more from other places. More than 2 hours before the two people arranged by Ying Tao returned, 2 people arrived at the Zhang family's manor. One was a man and the other was a woman. Both of them were less than 30 years old. They also rode 4 horses. As soon as they arrived, they released their horses to a family and asked them to help feed them. Along the way, the 2 people saw that many of the fields in Zhuangzi were short of water. However, when they arrived at Zhuangzi of the Go family, they found that the crops in the fields here were growing well. It was as if there was no drought, which made them very surprised. When they crossed the small bridge, they first sighed at the restaurant downstream that should have been built in the water. When they saw the rice seedlings in Zhuangzi of the Wang family, they were not only surprised, but also felt that they were dreaming. The rice seedlings grew messily in the fields. They should not have been growing well, but they were so lush. Compared to the rice seedlings in Zhuangzi of the Gu family just now, it was like comparing a strong man and a thin beggar. The 2 people thought at the same time, no wonder the Lord asked us to come here and check. The difference between the rice seedlings in Zhuangzi of the Zhang family and Wang family can be felt from the rice seedlings. The two of them remembered their mission this time. They followed the ridges and walked into the depths of the manor. When they arrived in front of a house, they saw a 6 or 7-year-old child kneeling in the middle of the courtyard. His face was facing the outside of the courtyard, and at the same time he saw the two of them. "Child, why are you kneeling outside? Did you break something in the house and get punished? Talk to me, I'll give you money to buy a new one." The man of the two people asked first. According to the many things he had encountered, this child must have broken something. After asking, he waited for the child to thank him. However, the child who was kneeling there looked at the two of them, curled his lips, and did not give them a single cent. When the man saw this, he was stunned. He took out a few copper coins, shook them in his hand and said, "Are you afraid that I'm lying to you? Do you see this money? Take it." As he spoke, he threw the money over, and it fell right beside the child. It was unknown how he used his strength, but the child could reach the place where the copper coins fell and did not roll elsewhere. The child smiled and did not pick up the copper coins at all. He asked the two people, "Tell me, what do you want to do here? One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. I advise you to leave quickly. The Wang family's Zhuangzi is not that easy to enter." The man was choked by the child's words. He turned his head to look at his companion. The woman quickly said, "Child, we are not bad people. I know you are good people. You came to my house when you had nothing to do and saw me kneeling here. You thought that I broke something, so you gave me some money to cheer me up. Then you asked me something you wanted to know. I am very grateful to you. I answered whatever you asked me, stupid. After answering you, I would have to kneel here for 10 days to half a month. I have seen a lot of people like you. Have you ever seen a bad person call himself a bad person? When you enter the prison of the yamen, you will probably cry injustice. What I said just now has told you a lot of things. Hurry up and leave so that you can give an explanation when you go back." The little boy didn't wait for the woman to finish her words and continued. The two of them felt that they weren't facing a little boy, but an old fox. Of course, they were not willing to leave like this. The woman smiled, "Child, you are so smart. Did your parents teach you? What a pity, your parents must not have taught you well. Can you read? Well, let me tell you something. I can read, but I can't recognize many words. Because I made a lot of mistakes, I was punished to kneel here. The headmaster said that I always wanted to play when I was in school. Are you satisfied? Let's go, I'll tell you something else." The man and woman were really frightened by the child in front of them. It seemed that he knew everything. The man had to ask again, "What did you tell us? We don't know anything." "Play dumb? The first thing I want to tell you is that this little child, must have been taught by someone to be wary of people like you. The second thing I want to tell you is that the little children of the farmsteads can go to a teacher to ask for knowledge. You will think, why would a child like me be so vigilant on Zhuangzi? Also, the farmers can go to school. Who built this school? Think carefully and you will be able to guess how many things the farmers will give to the teacher." As the child spoke, he stood up and rubbed his legs. When he felt comfortable, he knelt down again and continued to lower his head. The two people outside felt as if they had seen a ghost. How could this be? Could it be that someone deliberately arranged this? "Child, how can you still stand up? Aren't you being punished?" The woman wanted to find a place to break through. "Yes, I am. Think carefully. Why do I have to go to school? Who found the teacher for us? Did they want to punish me until I can't stand up? When I was talking to you just now, I thought about one thing and stood up to rest. Now I am thinking about the second thing." The child spoke with a proud face. "Then can you tell us about it?" The man continued to ask. The child shook his head. "Look around Zhuangzi yourself. Don't expect to ask others. The farmers of Zhuangzi, Zhang family and Wang family won't say. Look around as much as you can." When the two people saw that the child was unwilling to say anything, they could only give up. Of course, they couldn't go in and pick up the copper coins that they had thrown over. Following the child's instructions, they turned around and left, preparing to personally look around Zhuangzi. As soon as the two of them left, the child who was kneeling there suddenly stood up. He had no time to care about the copper coins on the ground. He first ran into the house and said to his parents, There are people from the outside who came to the farmstead to inquire about things. I told them to go and see for themselves. There's no need to tell the master. Those two look like rich people. Go quickly. When you are done, go back to school. Study hard and don't let the master worry." The child's mother stopped her needlework and said to her child. The child turned around and ran towards the master's house. After thinking for a while, he went out of the door and turned back. "Mother, you tell them. I will keep an eye on those two people." When the child ran away again, the mother picked up the first aid tool at home and pulled the bell. When there was a response from the other side, she told the story on another bamboo tube. The two people didn't know that the news in Zhuangzi had spread so quickly between the Zhang family and Wang family. As they walked, they suddenly felt that something was wrong. The whole Zhuangzi was too quiet. Other than the croaking of frogs, they couldn't see anyone else, let alone hear voices coming from the courtyard. Chapter 127. Jade is worthless if it is not carved. If one does not learn, one will not be righteous. The three principles are the righteousness of the monarch and his subjects. A man and a woman were walking in this quiet environment. Just as they were feeling uncomfortable, they suddenly heard a voice in front of them. They listened carefully and found that it was a group of children talking. As they walked closer, they could clearly hear what the children were saying. The two of them listened, and the more they listened, the more shocked they became. What was this thing? When the three words were put together, it sounded catchy and seemed to contain a lot of knowledge. It seemed that this was the school that the child who was kneeling in the courtyard was talking about. Where did they find these teachers? Why haven't I heard of the things they teach? The woman listened for a while. It seemed like she was talking to herself, but it also seemed like she was talking to the man. I've never heard of it either. I feel that Zhuangzi is different from other places. Everything makes people feel puzzled. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be no one on Zhuangzi. But look, let alone people, there isn't even a dog. The man also couldn't understand what was happening. This wasn't Zhuangzi, but a place where people could be eaten at any time. It was full of mystery. Even the children were different from other places. Naturally, they didn't know that someone had already notified them in advance. The people on Zhuangzi were all called back. If one looked carefully, they could see that a few large tools were thrown in the field because they weren't easy to carry. What the children were reciting was the three-character classic. Zhang Xiaobao didn't know it, but Wang Wan remembered it clearly. 2 days ago, she changed some of the content and had someone send it to the school. When the teachers saw it, they were shocked. Don't look at how easy it was to memorize and recite. If one really wanted to understand it, there was a lot to learn. Even if one became an elementary scholar, they would still be able to learn from it. The teachers who failed the imperial examinations wanted to know who wrote this book the most. However, no matter how they asked, the people who sent the three-character classic said that they didn't know. This made them feel admiration and anger. The only thing they could do was to understand the three-character classic and teach it to the children on Zhuangzi. In the main courtyard of Zhangzhe Zhuangzi, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan were instructing people to build a swimming pool for them. It was 5 meters wide and 10 meters long, which was the size of a swimming pool. First, they asked people to dig a hole. It couldn't be too deep because their parents wouldn't agree. But it couldn't be too shallow either. It had to be 1 meter deep with sand and water. Xiaobao, you've cheated so many times. Have you never used cement? Wang Wan stood at the side of the construction site and watched as the people dug and flattened the surrounding walls of the pool. She felt that it was better to use cement, so she asked Zhang Xiaobao. I heard that it's burning stones and adding some lime or something. It should be like that. Then it's burning again. After that, it becomes cement. Why do you have to use cement? If you really want a good swimming pool, you can just use those big blue stones. When we make more money, we can go there and transport marble. Zhang Xiaobao said some things, but he still didn't say how the cement was made. He changed the topic and led Wang Wan to think about natural stones. Wang Wan laughed at his answer. It's fine as long as you say you don't know how to make it. Why do you have to use blue stones and marble? You don't need to be so extravagant. There's a better place than that small river. You can fill it with water and let the sun dry it. It won't be cold, and you can also save firewood. Well, I don't know how to do it. I don't have the opportunity to learn. It's not shameful. Look at their speed. They can probably finish digging the hole before noon, and fill it with sand in the afternoon. When it gets cold, it will be our training place. Zhang Xiaobao didn't care whether they could make cement or not. It seemed to be burning various things together. When they had more money in the future, they could find someone to try burning things one by one. One day, they would be able to make cement. Wang Wan and Zhang Xiaobao were the same. They didn't care much about cement. They were satisfied with having a pool to swim in. Looking at those people sweating like rain, she said, "Give them some bones to eat at noon. There are many bones in our warehouse that have been frozen for more than 3 months. Let everyone be happy. Have you thought about how to deal with the 2 people who came up from Zhuangzi?" After Wang Wan finished talking about eating, she started to talk about important things. Those 2 people were really too stupid. They actually dared to ask about things so blatantly. If such people were to be spies, it seemed that they could really succeed. Who would believe that spies would be so stupid? Don't deal with them. Just ask them what they can. They must be sent by that person surnamed Yao. They have been here for nearly 4 hours. They woke up early in the morning and came here. I don't know if they are hungry. Based on the words of the people who came back 2 hours ago, Zhang Xiaobao analyzed the situation and felt that this man and woman were sent by the other side. He couldn't let these 2 people disappear from this world, so he could only let nature take its course. Everything that needed to be arranged had been arranged. Before the arrangements were made, even a child could remain vigilant, let alone those adults. Since you are not worried, then don't worry about them. Put the sand in the afternoon and fill it with water. It seems that we can't swim today. Maybe it will be hot tomorrow afternoon. It is so big. If we ask someone to boil water, we will need to add at least 1/3 of the water. Calculate how much water do you need. Wang Wan was a little anxious. She chatted with Zhang Xiaobao to pass the time and gave Zhang Xiaobao arithmetic problems. Do you have nothing to do? Do you still need to calculate? It is about 0.85 meters, 10 meters long and 5 meters wide. If we put in water, it should be about 42 tons. If we include the part that is absorbed by the sand, it should be about 45 to 48 tons. Don't you think we are too tall? Zhang Xiaobao was quite proficient in numbers. Since he had money, he naturally had to learn something about mathematics. You are not tall. You are already more than 2 years old. I don't think your parents are short. My parents are not short either. It is the same for my grandparents. We usually pay attention to exercise and eat well. It is normal for us to be a little stronger than normal children. Wang Wan compared herself to Zhang Xiaobao and realized that both she and Zhang Xiaobao were a few centimeters taller and heavier than normal children. But it wasn't too much. After all, they wouldn't hurt themselves just to increase their strength during training. Then will you look like a bodybuilder in the future? Zhang Xiaobao tried to find a topic. I don't want to talk to you anymore. You are pretending to be confused. Didn't you see what I looked like? When I went to catch you that day, I was wearing a dress. I don't know how many people felt sorry for me when the explosion happened. Wang Wan said and laughed. That's more like it. You are now working hard to grow in that direction. When I have nothing to do, I will take you out to show off. Whoever thinks you are good-looking and wants to take you for themselves, I will beat them up. Is this considered self-defense? Zhang Xiaobao certainly remembered Wang Wan at that time. In order not to be discovered by him, she even put on makeup and wore a miniskirt. Unfortunately, he was about to die at that time. Who could think of other things? Now that he thought about it, that figure was really good. Ordinary people couldn't imagine how much explosive power that body contained. What are you laughing at? You are not a good person at first glance. You are so young and yet you are thinking about the wrong things. There is no good man except for my family. I won't sleep with you at night, rogue. Wang Wan was angry when she saw Zhang Xiaobao's expression. I'm a rogue? Who scared me at that time? How did you scare me? I don't know about other men, but the deputy director of your department has 2 women outside. If I sent 3 million to them, I would know who came to catch me. You are actually worth 3 million. A female warrior who can stand up for the motherland and risk her life to carry out a mission. The internal price is 3 million. So it was him. I found that there was something wrong with him. Don't talk to me like that. What 3 million? That's not it. Wang Wan finally knew who betrayed her. She clenched her small fists. She couldn't wait to go back and beat that person down. It's not 3 million. In my heart, you real warriors are priceless. I have never measured you with money. That 3 million was to buy your deputy director's personality and dignity. You can rest assured that if I die, someone will help to deal with this kind of person. Your deputy director will die of a cold, a minor illness. Zhang Xiaobao had never dared to molest a person like Wang Wan. Seeing Wang Wan's reaction, he regretted it. I don't know if the law still exists in your heart, but what you do can be measured by morality. Let's not talk about this. It's over. We can't swim in the afternoon. Where are we going to play after lunch? Wang Wan's excited mood calmed down after hearing Zhang Xiaobao's words. Zhang Xiaobao also didn't know where to go. Their training had reached a bottleneck. They couldn't continue to increase the training volume, otherwise it would hurt their bodies. Wang Wan saw that Zhang Xiaobao didn't say anything, so she suggested, "Let's go up the mountain. I have never been there before." "Don't. Let's go to the fields and see the toads. If we want to go up the mountain, there will be a lot of people there. It will be a waste of manpower." Zhang Xiaobao quickly rejected Wang Wan's suggestion. It would be easy to make the people in the inner courtyard busy. Wang Wan thought for a while and sighed helplessly. Identity determined many things. She and Zhang Xiaobao had to consider other people. Otherwise, they wouldn't have built a swimming pool. Things like swimming in the river should never be done in the future. Looking at the fields is also good. Wang Wan thought of this and pulled Zhang Xiaobao to her room. The earlier they ate, the earlier they could go out to play. At the same time, she said to Zhang Xiaobao, "Those two should be hungry, right? Do you want to take care of their food?" "Yes, tell the restaurant now. When they see that man and woman order food, they will introduce the expensive dishes to them. The cheap ones are all gone." Zhang Xiaobao replied. Chapter 128. It was almost noon, and the people at the swimming pool were still using the last bit of time to finish the construction. No matter what, they had to finish the construction of the swimming pool before lunch. At this time, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan finished their meal and left on their wooden carriage. The people in the inner courtyard were already used to the two little ancestors' behavior. As long as the young master and young lady went out alone, they would definitely not go to a dangerous place. Otherwise, they would ask someone to follow them. This saved the people in the inner courtyard a lot of trouble. The two little ancestors were also sensible. Every time they wanted to do something dangerous, they would discuss it with others. When they did not discuss it, it was absolutely safe. Therefore, when Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan went out this time, the people in the inner courtyard were not worried. Not only did the young master and young lady know the severity of the matter, but more importantly, the children in Zhuangzi had already left school and were running everywhere. Therefore, there were people everywhere in Zhuangzi. Moreover, there were also people patrolling the temple, who would help to look after them. The little tadpole is now a tadpole. I remember that when I was eavesdropping on other people's lessons, there was a lesson called Little Tadpoles Find Their Mothers. At that time I thought, how good would it be if I was a little tadpole? I would be able to find my mother in the end. Let's go, don't look at the fields. Let's go to the restaurant and have some tea. Don't always make me pedal by myself. Don't you want to tire me out? Zhang Xiaobao said as he pedaled while looking at the fields on both sides. Later, he found that Wang Wan was not moving at all in front of him. She even raised her legs. This was not a bicycle with chains and there were no bearings. There were only 2 pedals on each wheel. When one pedal, the wheel would turn once. It was a 2-person bicycle. If one pedal, one would die of exhaustion. Oh, I'll pedal. When we arrive at the restaurant, let's sit on the first floor. Maybe we can see that man and woman and see what they will do during the meal. Wang Wan put her feet on the pedals beside the wheel and controlled the direction to the restaurant. The surrounding children who had just finished school were running around. Occasionally, someone would reach out and grab the snake's tail and swing it a few times to break the snake's bones. Then they would grab the snake's head, open its mouth, and put it on their lapels for the snake to bite. With a pull, the snake's teeth were pulled off, and it became a harmless snake. The child hung it around his neck, preparing to take it back to eat with his father's wine. When Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan arrived at the restaurant between the clouds and the water, there were already 4 water snakes hanging on the bicycle. When the bored waiter standing in front of the restaurant saw the arrival of the young master and young lady, he hurriedly went up to them and helped them to park the bicycle. Then, he took the 4 water snakes and guarded them as they walked inside. Have the 4 teachers sent the dishes today? Zhang Xiaobao asked as he walked inside. Young master, they haven't sent them yet. Today's dishes are fried meat with bean sprouts, eggs, and cucumber. They will be ready in a while. Young master, what do you want to eat? The waiter followed beside him and answered. The 4 snakes hanging on his arms would occasionally wriggle. You haven't sent them? That's great. Let's make these 4 snakes and send them to them. They must be exhausted from making the 3-character classic. Just make some tea for me and Cuckoo. After eating, let's eat on the first floor. Zhang Xiaobao yawned and walked towards the window with Wang Wan. At this time there were quite a few people in the restaurant. The second floor was almost occupied by those who thought they were knowledgeable and came from rich families. Even if there was no water downstairs, they could still recite a few poems. Most of the people eating on the first floor were businessmen who came to buy popcorn. Popcorn would be sold once every morning and afternoon. Every time, each person could only buy a sack of popcorn. As a result, some businessmen who traveled a little farther had to buy once in the morning and again in the afternoon. They had to bring back 2 sacks of popcorn and sell them. Naturally, they had to find a place to eat at noon. Some people who were careful with their spending would bring some food to the restaurant and buy a bowl of wine for 3 copper coins and eat it directly. However, some people who didn't know how to calculate would eat in the restaurant. The restaurant specially provided a kind of rice. 4 10 copper coins, a big bowl of rice, a meat dish, and a vegetable dish would be placed on a plate with a grid in the middle. Then a bowl of egg shake sleeve soup with few egg drops would be served. For a time the restaurant became a lot more lively. At night more people came. Every 10 minutes there would be a meal that cost 3 copper coins. A bowl of rice with a vegetable stir-fried melon slice, or a bowl of noodles with shredded meat noodles and fried soy sauce noodles. It was specially prepared for those who came to the market. If people who ate this kind of meal were willing to pay 1 copper coin more, they could even sleep in a wooden house with a rope made from wormwood. There were no pillows or bedding provided, only some hay. They couldn't even afford to pay 1 copper coin. There was a common bed in the market with hay underneath and a long piece of wood as a pillow. 3 sides were covered by straw curtains, and 1 side was empty. There was no mosquito coil made from wormwood, so they could sleep as they pleased. These matters related to the market were all the ideas of Su Si, who had already brought food to sell. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan really didn't care about how he managed the market. Right now, Ergo was helping to support the market. It's a pity that we don't have cheap and simple lunchboxes. Otherwise, we could sell this meal to more places. Su Si is really a good person. He manages the market so well. In the past 2 months, Zhuangzi has actually earned 5 taels and 4 copper coins by relying on the market. Zhang Xiaobao sat on a chair next to the window. He raised his chin and tried his best to look outside. Wang Wan waved her hand at a shop assistant. The shop assistant was already used to this. He brought 2 special high chairs and brought them here to replace the young master and young lady's chairs. This way the 2 of them were much more comfortable. After sitting on the high chair, Wang Wan pulled down the blinder under the window. When she could see the outside more clearly, she said, Su Si is really a good person. Guangxi and Zhuangzi must be very regretful. The right to set the price is in our hands. In the past 2 months we have been earning 5 taels of silver every month. This doesn't include some of the things we bought and hoarded. If we really add it up, we can earn 20 taels of silver. When more people come to trade in the future, it won't just be 20 taels. There will also be people in the market who will spend money in the restaurant. In a month we will earn a lot. If we say that he is worth 100 taels, he is worth 100 taels. Guangxi was let go for 1 tael of silver. He will regret it. While they were talking, the tea was served. It was not made according to the production method here. There was no ginger or salt. Zhang Xiaobao specially taught people to make it. He didn't do it himself. However, he knew that international swindlers had to come into contact with some of the upper-class people. They had to talk about art and tea ceremony. It was impossible not to learn. The tea leaves that were served were stolen from other places before the Qingming festival. It was theft. They stole the shoots. If they were not caught, they would leave some money in a conspicuous place in the tea house. If they were caught, they would have to pay more money. Until now, there had been no cases of people being caught being sent to the authorities. The tea in front of Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan was Xinyang Maojian. The main reason was that the tea was produced nearby. It was in Hunan. They could send people to steal it. If it was West Lake Longjing, it would be far away. After pouring the tea, each person took a small cup and drank slowly. They either drank it in one gulp or took a few sips. When they felt that it was cold, they threw it away and refilled it. Can't you think of a way to get some tiguanyin and pu'er? I don't like green tea. Wang Wan drank a few mouthfuls. She felt that her mouth was a little dry and lacked some sweetness. She asked Zhang Xiaobao to think of a way. Zhang Xiaobao didn't have any good ideas. One of the two teas was fully fermented, and the other was partially fermented. If a girl was willing to drink it, it could help her lose weight. After thinking for a while, he said, "Why don't you drink some flower tea? Jasmine is fine. Or how about this? Let's ferment this Xinyang Maojian. What do you think? This can be fermented?" Wang Wan asked with a smile. "Yes, why not? You know pu'er, right? How do you ferment it?" Back then it was picked and carried. As we walked it rained. The tea was soaked. We continued to walk. When it was wet it was dried. When it was wet again it was fermented again. People who eat a lot of meat found that this tea was good for the gastrointestinal tract. It helped with digestion and also cleaned the intestines. Zhang Xiaobao continued to explain. Wang Wan was stunned. Really? Could it be that the tea I drank in the past was the kind that was drenched in rain? What you drank is not important. What's important is that this method can be fermented. Not only is it rainwater, but the person carrying the tea is also sweating. The smell is really not ordinary. Think about it. Carrying such heavy tea, crossing mountains and using crutches. After walking for a few dozen steps you have to stop and rest. You call it crutches. How can there be any lack of sweat? When it came to this kind of thing, Zhang Xiaobao was better than Wang Wan. He often drank tea with people in the past. He heard from others that besides horses and mules, the tea horse ancient road was mostly carried by people. There were mudslides, rainstorms, landslides, and all kinds of situations could occur. When they were drinking tea and talking, they wanted this kind of feeling. The harder the other person worked, the better the taste of the tea. Therefore, after Zhang Xiaobao cheated that person of 160 million yuan, he also felt very comfortable. The more that person was in pain, the more comfortable Zhang Xiaobao felt that the money was spent. Don't say any more. I will never drink that kind of tea again. It's disgusting. Did you do it on purpose? Wang Wan listened to Zhang Xiaobao's introduction and felt waves of nausea. She didn't even want to touch the tea in front of her. Little young master, little miss, those two people are coming. At this time, a waiter came to Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan's side and reported in a low voice. The two people he was talking about were naturally the man and woman who came to inquire about the news. Oh, they're here? Okay, later tell them that there are no seats on the second floor. Tell them to eat on the first floor. If they don't want to eat, then forget it. When you order, take out the menu. The golden menu. Go, don't come back. When Zhang Xiaobao heard this news, he became spirited. He ordered and paid attention to the entrance. Chapter 129. Not long after, two people came in one after another. The one in the front was a woman, and the one behind her was naturally the man. As soon as they came in, a waiter went up to greet them. Find a room on the second floor where you can see the scenery outside. The woman casually gave the waiter a dozen copper coins, which were strung together with a string. It seemed that she had been prepared for a long time. The waiter smiled happily, but said to the two of them, "Two guests, there is no room upstairs. They are all occupied. Why don't you eat on the first floor?" As he spoke, he seemed to be a little unwilling and wanted to return the money in his hand. He meant that it was fine if the two of them didn't want to eat, but if they wanted to eat, they could eat on the first floor. The woman frowned and then relaxed. She said with a smile, "That's fine. Name all the good dishes between the clouds and the water and see which one you like." "Yes, there is a menu in the restaurant. If you like it, I will go to the kitchen and let the chef make it." The waiter magically took out a menu that was half an inch thick. Fortunately, he had this thing. Otherwise, he would be exhausted to death if he had to name the dishes one by one. The man and the woman didn't expect that the restaurant between the clouds and the water had such a preparation. The woman said again, But the two of us can't read. What do you think we should do? Yes, you are right. There are indeed people who can't read. It doesn't matter. There is a picture on the menu. You will know when you see it. If you think it is good and want to ask, I will explain it to you. The waiter admired the young master more and more. He even considered this point. The woman and the man found a seat and sat down. They opened the menu and felt that something was wrong. The price of the dishes was not less than 5 taels of silver. Looking from the beginning to the end, the most expensive one was 300 taels of silver, and the cheapest one was exactly 5 taels of silver. This was not something that ordinary people could afford. The man looked at the most expensive dish in a daze. The woman closed the menu and said to the waiter, "Is everything in your restaurant so expensive?" As soon as she said that, she regretted it. She had just said that she was illiterate, but now she was saying that the price was high. The price could be written on the paper, and there was no drawing. It's all my fault for taking the wrong menu. This menu is for distinguished guests to order. I'll go and change the cheaper menu for you. The cheapest bowl of soup costs only 1 copper coin for a piece of cake. That's how it tastes. It's just right for people like you to eat. The waiter hurriedly put on a panicked expression and bowed to apologize. Please forgive me. It's all my fault for taking the wrong menu. This menu is for distinguished guests to order. When the waiter said this, his voice was rather loud. Not only did the man and woman understand, but the surrounding people who were eating also heard it clearly. They all turned their heads and looked over, sizing up the two people. Some even had looks of disdain in their eyes, and some even whispered to their companions, "You want to go up to the second floor like this? Look at what you're wearing. I thought you were rich, but I didn't expect you to be pretending. Tomorrow, I'll take out the clothes I wore during the New Year and wear them to pretend." When the man and woman heard this, their expressions immediately became ugly. The woman snatched the menu back from the waiter, flipped through it and said to the waiter, "Do you not understand human language? I'm asking you, the dishes on the menu are so expensive. Is the food you make really that delicious? If it's not delicious, don't blame me for smashing your between the clouds and the water." "Sir, you're making things difficult for me. How can I know whether it's delicious or not? Everyone has their own taste, and it's difficult to adjust. If you think it's good, then it's delicious. If you eat it and say it's not good, then it's naturally not delicious. It's just like how some people are willing to eat scallions, ginger, and garlic." The waiter was not fooled at all. Whether it was delicious or not didn't at all depend on the mouth of others. Even if it was delicious, what could he do if he was lying through his teeth? "Well, serve these 4 dishes and this soup. Also warm up 2 pots of wine." The woman casually ordered a few dishes on the menu and didn't argue with the waiter. This time she was here to inquire about some matters. Just now at the manor she didn't ask much. Once the child finished school, she casually stopped a person, and the person looked at the two of them with eyes full of vigilance. They wanted to ask the teacher, but they were sent out by the teacher. They did not understand anything, which made them feel very depressed. Since they could not get anything from there, they knew to find a more crowded place. That was why they chose this restaurant. They also knew that the Between the Clouds and the Water restaurant was also in Zhuangzi. While waiting for the waiter to serve the dishes, the two began to listen carefully. They wanted to get some information about the Zhang family and Wang family in Zhuangzi from these people. In the end, they heard nothing useful even after the dishes were served. They only knew that there was a market here and that the crops were still growing well here, even though there was a drought elsewhere this year. The two already knew these 2 points. When they came, they saw the crops in the fields. Not only were they not good, they were very good. However, these things were far from enough to satisfy the Prime Minister. The two of them looked at each other and decided to ask someone. When the two of them set their eyes on a certain table, they found that the people at the table were not avoiding them at all. They had no intention of talking to them at all. They also understood that this was because the dishes they ordered were too expensive. The person felt that it was not appropriate to talk to such people. If they said something wrong, it would easily cause trouble. The two of them looked around and finally found 2 3- or 4-year-old children sitting there drinking tea. While they were surprised, they also had some ideas. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan did not know that the others had estimated their ages. They pretended that nothing had happened and drank one sip after another. The temperature of the tea was obviously not enough, but they did not ask the waiter to refill it. The woman looked at Zhang Xiaobao and felt that it was not good to serve the dishes to them when they were drinking tea. Children who could drink tea here probably had some spare money at home. She looked at the clothes the two children were wearing and finally understood that it was not as simple as a little spare money. Just the clothes alone cost dozens of taels of silver. Thinking of this, she gave the man a look and told him to stay there and continue eating. She went over to the two children and wanted to talk to them and ask some questions. Children from rich families should know more than others. Who would have thought that as soon as she stood up and took 2 steps toward that side, 6 or 7 people suddenly stood up in the lobby of the first floor, looking at her vigilantly. At the same time, 2 of the shop assistants also came over. One stood in front of the 2 children, and the other slightly blocked in front of her. They smiled and said, "Sir, is there anything you want this little one to do?" This time, she and the man finally realized that something was wrong. They were just going to go over. She was a woman, so the reaction of the waiters in this restaurant was a bit too much. There was a sense of evil in them, similar to when they entered Zhuangzi. Seeing that the waiters had no intention of retreating, the woman smiled and said, "It's nothing, I just want to talk to these 2 children." "Oh, the children are young and don't know anything. They don't have much courage. If they get scared, then if you want to go over, then go ahead." As the waiters spoke, they suddenly changed the topic and moved aside. The other waiters didn't move and continued to stand by the table. They even put a chair there for the woman to sit. When the other people who stood up saw the waiters like this, they also sat back down. The waiters were still a bit worried. When they were talking, they glanced at the young master. When they saw the young master nod his head, they had no choice but to move aside. The woman didn't know about this. Her line of sight was blocked by the waiters. Seeing that she could go over, she tried to make the smile on her face more amiable. She sat down and looked at the 2 children who were looking at her curiously. The woman smiled at Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan also returned a pure smile. With her chubby appearance, long eyelashes, and big eyes, anyone who saw her would want to kiss her. "Tell me, how old are you?" The woman lowered her seniority and asked softly. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan blinked their eyes. They put their little hands in front of their faces and carefully counted. After counting for a while, they stretched out 3 fingers and answered softly, 3 years old. Seeing the 2 children's cute actions, the woman reached out her hands and wanted to hug them. The waiter standing there suddenly said, "Sir, would you like a pot of tea?" This kind of interruption was too obvious. The woman could only resist the impulse in her heart and asked Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, "Baby Xiaobao, who are the people in your family?" "He's a good person," Wang Wan replied. "Her." Zhang Xiaobao pointed at Wang Wan. "Good people, yes, good people. Are the 2 of you a family? You're so obedient. Can you tell me where you live?" The woman didn't get anything out of them and asked again. "We live at home." Wang Wan. "On the couch." Zhang Xiaobao. "In good. Then where do you live?" The woman asked. "In the courtyard." Wang Wan. "Where?" Zhang Xiaobao asked in confusion. "Then what are your surnames?" The woman tried to calm her breathing. "What's my surname?" Wang Wan asked Zhang Xiaobao. "Different from mine." Zhang Xiaobao answered. The woman felt like she was going crazy. She asked so many questions, but she didn't get any useful information. Just as she was about to continue asking, a child's voice came from the entrance of the restaurant. "This between the clouds and the water looks pretty good. Buy it for this young master. That Zhangzhe Zhuangzi looks pretty good. Buy it for this young master too. Come, let's go upstairs and eat first." The voice wasn't soft. The people on the first floor all looked in that direction. They saw an 11 or 12-year-old boy wearing a light blue brocade walking in under the protection of a group of people. The others didn't know where this child came from. His tone wasn't small. However, the woman stared at the jade pendant hanging from the child's waist and revealed a puzzled expression. Chapter 130. Xiaobao, did you see that? This person is probably the one who bought Zhuangzi. Seems like he won't be easy to deal with. Such a playboy. Do you think he's a prince or an imperial grandson? Wang Wan also turned her head and pretended to be curious. After a glance, she asked Zhang Xiaobao with her lips. In the past year, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan had a tacit understanding of each other. Just a glance was enough for them to divide the work. Wang Wan focused on observing the child and the people protecting him, while Zhang Xiaobao paid attention to the expressions of the other people on the first floor. He happened to see the woman's eyes and made a judgment. He replied to Wang Wan, "I can't tell. I don't think it's anyone important." The two people sent by Yao Chong weren't that afraid of this child. Maybe it's someone from a remote royal family? At the very least, he's not Li Longji's son or grandson, nor is he from the family of the prince who abdicated the throne. Are you sure? Li Longji has 5 brothers. While he's monitoring them, he's also giving others the impression of brotherly love. He's attacking us. Have you thought of how to deal with him? It's not easy to answer a playboy. Even if you give him a profitable business, he might not take it seriously and just want to take our place. Wang Wan was a little anxious when she saw that Zhang Xiaobao couldn't make an accurate judgment because of limited information. She was from the Zhuangzi Wang family. Even if something happened to Zhang Xiaobao, her family would avoid it. At most, they would sell the land together. However, she knew Zhang Xiaobao's thoughts. These lands were the lifeblood of his family. He wouldn't let others take them away. If something happened to Zhang Xiaobao, what else could she pursue in this life? That would be true loneliness. With him around, the two of them could understand each other. They could help each other, encourage each other, and rely on each other. If she was left alone, the world would become gloomy. Zhang Xiaobao smiled sweetly. Don't worry. It's good to be a playboy. A gentleman can be bullied, and a villain can be tempted. Such a young playboy will have a way as well. When we go back, we'll announce that Zhang Xiaobao, and Zhuangzi will organize a competition. The winner will get 5 century eggs. When we go back, we'll start making century eggs. Actually, this is my least favorite. Other people might like it. Other than the eggs, we'll also get a champion's medal. It's made with 1 tael of silver. Rubik's Cube. That's the first round. The second round will be a competition of understanding of history. Similarly, the winner will be a medal made with gold and 50 century eggs. The third round will be a test of intelligence. The two of us will come up with some brain teasers. The prize will be a silver medal and 10 century eggs. The fourth round will be a calligraphy competition. A gold medalist will get 50 century eggs. After the 4 rounds, whoever wins the most will get a trophy. It has to be big and made of iron with a layer of gold on the outside. It has to be 2 meters tall, and the largest diameter has to be half a meter. When Wang Wan saw Zhang Xiaobao's confident expression, she knew that he had a plan. When she heard about the 4 rounds of competition, she couldn't figure out what Zhang Xiaobao was planning. What does this have to do with that playboy? Eating too many century eggs isn't good for the body. You gave him 50 each time, but he ate all of them. It's over if he gets sick after eating them. Wang Wan couldn't keep up with Xiaobao's train of thought. Zhang Xiaobao looked at the child who was stopped by the waiter, and explained that there was no seat upstairs. He said to Wang Wan, "The second and fourth rounds are prepared for him. He's still so young, so he'll definitely fight for the seats. Even if you don't invite him, he'll still force his way in. You have to consider what kind of education he received in the past. In terms of history and calligraphy, which of the 3 Zhuangzi can beat him? A person like him definitely has a good upbringing. Even if he doesn't want to learn, he'll have to pretend. That way, he'll be better than the children in Zhuangzi. Plus, the remaining 2 are more fun to play with, and there are so many children playing with him. He won't be able to resist this temptation. Rubik's Cube? If this thing is made of wood, won't it wear out too much?" Wang Wan finally understood. There were unique ways to deal with playboys. However, the Rubik's Cube used to be made of plastic, so it was resistant to wear. In this situation, metal was too heavy, so it could only be made of wood. When it rubbed against each other, it would definitely break. That depends on what kind of wood it is. Find a good wood and it can at least be used for a while. As long as this thing is broken or disassembled, others will be able to copy it. Kites are easier to break, but there are still so many people playing. How much do you think a silk kite costs? How much does a Rubik's Cube cost? Zhang Xiaobao corrected Wang Wan's pragmatism. When playing, people tend to ignore the cost. For example, firecrackers. The most important thing was to achieve the goal. Alright, I'll listen to you. I can make a Rubik's Cube with 1 hand. What you need to solve now is that he's going upstairs and we're about to start. Are you going to let him go to the second floor? If he goes up, what will happen to the two people here? Wang Wan's small hand made a few movements of playing with the Rubik's Cube. Then she asked Zhang Xiaobao to solve this dilemma. Zhang Xiaobao also understood that if he let the kid go up, it would be hard to say to others. He could only say to the waiter standing next to him, "I'm going home." As he spoke, he opened his two arms, meaning to let the waiter carry him. When the waiter saw that the young master actually let him carry him, he was so excited that he didn't know what to do. His eyes were wide open. He found another waiter, and the two of them carried the car out of the door. They walked for nearly 100 meters before they put down Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. The waiter who carried Zhang Xiaobao just now hurried back to the restaurant. When he saw that those people were still asking to go upstairs and were about to start a fight, he quickly said, "Dear guests, there is indeed no space on the second floor. If you want to go up to the top to see the view, you can go to the top. There is a shed there for you to drink and enjoy the scenery. But the price." The waiter stopped talking and looked at the 11 or 12-year-old child. "Can we go to the top? How much is it? Lead the way." This child really didn't care about money. "Sir, you can go up for 100 taels of silver. Do you want to go up now?" When the waiter said this, his voice was trembling. It was really too expensive. If it wasn't for the young master's order, he wouldn't dare to ask for 100 taels of silver. The child looked at the people around and saw that they all had awkward expressions. He knew that no one had a single tael of silver on them. He put his hand into the sleeve that was obviously a little heavy. When he took it out, he was already holding a bag. He opened it and took out a few yellow things. There were little rabbits, ponies, and small fish. He gave them to the waiter. "That's all. See if it's enough?" He threw down this sentence and walked up. "It's enough, it's enough. Only these. Take them well. Naturally, someone will come and give you the money in exchange for these things. If there is one missing, be careful of your head." Before the waiter could finish speaking, one of the people stood up and threatened him. Before he went up, he snorted. Seeing that the person went up, the waiter didn't dare to stay. He took these things and ran out. He also knew what these things were. He heard that when the palace rewarded people, they would usually make various shapes of gold. There would be a mark on it. Not to mention that someone would come to exchange for it. Even if no one did, he wouldn't dare to spend it. This was such a big matter. The waiter understood that the restaurant manager couldn't handle it. He could only send it to the young master and see what he planned. "People can go up to the top of your building?" The woman was still thinking about the jade pendant. For a moment she couldn't think of who would have such a thing. But she knew that it definitely came from the palace. Seeing that the person went up, she asked the waiter. "Yes, you can go up. The top of the building has no shelter. But it's like floating clouds. It's just that the price is too high. Ordinary people can't go up." The waiter was quite sensitive and knew how to respond. "Little sister, since we're almost done eating, why don't we go back early?" At this time the man spoke. He was thinking about the identity of the two children and was ready to go up and see. "Yes, it's time to go." The woman also reacted. The people upstairs could slowly investigate, but the matter arranged by the Prime Minister couldn't be delayed. The two children were definitely not ordinary. She had just made a move, and someone wanted to protect them. How could they be ordinary people? The two of them paid the bill and left. The dishes had not yet been served, and the plates on the table had not been touched. When the two of them chased after them, they saw from afar that the waiter who had just taken the gold was saying something to the two children. Because it was too far away, they could not hear what they were saying, so they could only continue to chase after them. After walking a few more steps, the waiter had already turned back. The two children were sitting on a strange thing, and their two legs were moving very fast. The road in Zhuangzi was well built, and the ground was flat. Also, it wasn't raining. The man and woman wanted to chase after them, but they were stopped by the waiter. By the time they got rid of the waiter and chased after them again, the two children had already sat on that thing to a small slope. Just as the man and woman were overjoyed and thought that they could catch up, one of the two children had something in his mouth. He blew with all his might, and the ear-piercing sound spread far and wide. The children they met on their way here, who still couldn't get anything out of them, rushed over from all over the place. Nearly 30 people surrounded the two children. Then they saw that the two children were still sitting on that unknown thing, and were being carried forward by others. When the man and woman saw this scene, they finally gave up the idea of continuing to chase. The woman looked in that direction and said, "The little ancestors of Zhang Zhuangzi and Wang Zhuangzi are eating on the first floor of the restaurant." The people who stood up on the first floor of the restaurant were the two villagers of Zhuangzi. The man also agreed. Yes, no wonder the two children dared to come out and play. When the whistle blew, the two Zhuangzi people who heard it moved even more. Look over there, the adults who live nearby also came out. Chapter 131. Xiao Bao, just hiding is not a solution. Give them some information and send them away. Staying here will delay things. Prime Minister Yao is still waiting. Give the rice seedlings to Gu family's Zhuangzi and reveal that they are growing well. Tell them about the relief provided to Gu family's Zhuangzi during the drought. What do you think? Wang Wan sat in the car and asked Zhang Xiaobao softly as they were being carried back. Zhang Xiaobao first turned his head to Wei Wei, and then glanced at the two people standing there. He nodded and said, "Okay, let Er go find someone from Gu family's Zhuangzi. It will be more convincing to hear it from someone else." The children on Zhuangzi didn't know what the two were talking about. They were all grinning as they carried the car. To them, being able to do something for their master was the happiest thing. The little young master had mentioned the whistle before, but he had never used it. Today he finally used it. Under the protection of the children, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan returned to the courtyard. When the car was put down, the children ran away noisily before they could even thank them. This made the two feel a special feeling that they couldn't get rid of. For the first time, I realized that these children are better than my bodyguards. They make me feel safer. Zhang Xiaobao said with a smile. I think so too. They have a kind of kinship. They don't have bodyguards. Let's arrange things. Today at noon we will sleep next to the swimming pool. It is cooler there. Wang Wan agreed, even though she knew that these children couldn't compare to Zhang Xiaobao's bodyguards in terms of professionalism. As the two talked, they arrived at the swimming pool. At this moment the sand was already being filled. The fine sand was sifted out and pushed into the pit. After that, it could be filled with water. Zhang Xiaobao asked someone to call Ergo, who was in charge of organizing the market. After giving some instructions, he lay there and began to take an afternoon nap. Ergo left after a few words of assurance. Should we go back and take a look at the person at the top? A man and a woman, who were standing not too far away from the restaurant, were stunned for half an hour. No one knew what they were thinking about. Only when someone ran past them quickly did the man open his mouth to ask. The woman glanced at Zhang Ergu, who was walking away, and gave up on stopping him for questioning. She couldn't understand what had happened to the Zhang family and the Wang family in Zhuangzi. It was as if all of them had contracted some sort of illness. It was not until the figure of the person running away was out of sight that he said, "There's no need for that. We don't have to worry about this. Ask the people from the Gu family in Zhuangzi." I don't believe that the people from the Gu family in Zhuangzi would hide. The three Zhuangzi are so far away, they should know something. After speaking, the woman strode towards the Gu family in Zhuangzi. The man looked at the vague figure on the roof of the restaurant and turned to leave as well. The two crossed the small bridge and saw a person squatting by the side of the field. His eyes were fixed on the seedlings in the field, motionless. Even if they deliberately made their footsteps louder, that person only turned his head to glance at them before turning back again. Seeing this scene, the two felt their hearts tremble. They wondered if the people from the Gu family in Zhuangzi were also like that person over there. "Brother, it seems that your family is doing well this year. At the beginning of autumn you will have a lot of grain, right?" At this time the man walked forward and squatted there as well. He looked in front of him and asked casually, "What do you mean by doing well? There is a drought this year. The entire Sanshui County will not have half of the usual grain harvest. It will be rent-free and transfer-free." The person from the Gu family's farmstead looked at the two of them warily and tried to explain himself. He was afraid that the two of them would praise his land and end up having to pay the rent. The other places in Sanshui County had already reduced their production, So they had to report the same. Brother, you are right. It is indeed a little worse. Of course we will be rent-free. Brother, I see that the crops in your Zhuangzi field are not as good as the crops in the two Zhuangzi fields over there. If I were you, I would also use new seeds. The man also knew why the farmer said this. The entire county was in drought. If there was a good harvest here, they would be able to save up a lot of grain. His family would be more well off. He followed along and asked about the rice on both sides. He even sighed and shook his head. The people from the Gu family's farmstead were finally a little happier. You're right. That place is indeed better than mine. But it's not because of the use of new seeds. Look at my field, that tree, and the few trees in front of it. Don't you think it's not much worse than that place? The man and woman looked in the direction that the farmer was pointing. Sure enough, there were some seedlings that were better than the others in the field. They looked carefully and found that there were many seedlings that were the same. Compared to Zhangwang and Zhuangzi, they were a little worse, but they were not bad. It is good. It is about the same. Is there another way? Why do the same seeds produce different crops? The man asked again. The farmer sat down and put his hands on his lap. He looked across the small bridge and said, there is a way, that is, to buy the seedlings from the Zhang family's farmstead and plant them. Look at these seedlings. When a gust of wind blew, the seedlings that grew in that area were all uprooted. During that time our people in Zhuangzi wanted to die. They cried and helped the seedlings. The people from Zhangwang and Zhuangzi also came to help. However, the seedlings were broken and it was useless to help them. The master was kind and helped us buy a lot of seedlings from Zhangzhe Zhuangzi. He asked us to replant them. Look, now they are like young men. Replanted? They can grow so well? The two people asked in surprise. Even if they did not know how to farm, they had heard about it. The woman asked again. They came to help. Aren't they afraid that the seedlings in the field will be blown away? Blown away? It is different. I went to see the seedlings in Zhangwang and Zhangzheng's fields. They were not this big at that time. They were like fat boys who had eaten their fill. They stood in the water with their hands on their waists and let the wind blow. They could even block the wind for their younger brothers and sisters behind them. The farmer obviously thought that the seedlings in Zhangwang and Zhangzhang were people. As he spoke, he gestured. His face was flushed with excitement. He was no longer as stiff as before. After the farmer finished speaking, he saw that the two people were in a daze. He continued, you don't know, but the seedlings in my fields are the same as the ones in their fields. I don't know how they got the seedlings. Next year we will change from them. Oh, so their temples in Zhuangzi grow well. Good, we must plant them next year. I am afraid that there will be a drought next year and the harvest will not be much. It is a pity that such good seedlings will be lost. The man sighed regretfully. Don't be afraid. What is a drought? With Zhangzhe Zhuangzi, there is no need to be afraid of drought. How would you know how good the Zhuangzi of Zhangzhang and Wang Zhuangzi are? This year's spring plowing is coming, but there is not a single drop of rain. Everyone is anxious. But when it comes to spring plowing, they let us carry the precious water. In the end, they could not carry it anymore. There was a lot of land. They used bamboo tubes and put them here. They left a hole there to pour the water. In just one day, they filled up most of the land here. There were so many bamboo tubes. They were all paid for by them. They are good people. After that, they exchanged for the seedlings here. As long as the farmer talked about the Zhuangzi of Zhangzhang and Wang Zhuangzi, he seemed to be more excited. He stood up from the ground, stamped his feet and clapped his hands, wanting to express his gratitude. Then where did they get the water? The man asked. Where did they get it? Of course they saved it in advance. 6 big ponds have been filled with water long ago, and 7 wells. Oh, now there are 10 wells. My Gu family has also dug 3 wells in Zhuangzi. Their ponds are used to raise fish, plant lotus flowers and release ducks and geese. I heard that they sent the ducks and geese to another place a few days ago. It is said that there are many locusts there. Such good people, no matter how far they are, they will help. The man and woman looked at each other. The woman said, they are good people. They are not bad. I just went to see. They even built a school for the children in Zhuangzi. Unfortunately, the farmers do not have much money to begin with. If they have to hand in some things to study, their lives will be even harder. Hand in things? What things? You said that they asked the farmers in Zhuangzi for things to give to the teachers? That was impossible. The main family was the one paying for everything. Even the food that the children ate in school was paid for by the main family. That was not a big deal. Every time there was a festival, the main family would send something to the villager. They would send clothes, food, and clothes. They would even help raise the poultry together. I heard that after the autumn harvest, the children in Zhuangzi of the Gu family can also go to school, but they don't have to eat. When there are more chickens, ducks, and geese, the farmers in Zhuangzi of the Gu family will help raise them. Their lives will be better. The elders of the two families will definitely live to 100 years old. They are all good people. When the farmer talked about this, he became excited again. It seemed that a good life would appear tomorrow. His eyes, which were originally a little cloudy, became clear. The two of them finally understood why they didn't tell anyone when they went to scout for information, and why so many people came over when the whistle sounded. The main family had given them all the benefits that they could. Anyone who wanted to scheme against them through the manor could be said to be daydreaming. Good brother is right. Those people will definitely live to 100 years old. Brother, is there anything else? After knowing the reason for this obstacle, the two wanted to get more information from the farmer so that they could go back and report to the Grand Chancellor. They were very satisfied with what they had learned. No, what else do you want to ask? That's all I know. The farmer shook his head and did not say anything else. He had already said what he could according to Ergo's instructions. He was not willing to reveal anything else. When the two saw the farmer's expression, they gave up on asking any more questions. They felt that it was good enough that a farmer knew this much. They thanked him and got up to leave. The farmer also grinned and walked back, humming a song that they did not know the name of. He was very happy to be able to help the Zhang family and Wang family Zhuangzi. Are we going back directly? The man asked the woman next to him as he watched the farmer walk away. We won't go back first. We'll go to that restaurant and see if anything happened. We'll report to the Grand Chancellor together. The woman was a little worried that there would be a conflict. If that happened, it would be difficult to deal with the Grand Chancellor. After all, Zhang Zhuangzi had done a great service. Chapter 132. Green Mountains and Boundless Green Grass. Birds were flying, spreading their wings freely, like a jade pond sparkling under the light. Upstairs of chatting and laughing, drinking wine. The wind blew the bells, echoing faintly. Clouds covered the sun, the sound of a flute was long. Suddenly looking, there were bandits fleeing from the wilderness. Stumbling, only then did they know that their country was in peril. Beside the clouds, it was not heaven. On the rooftop of the Water Cloud Tavern, the young master dressed in luxurious clothing was enjoying the scenery around him amidst the cheers of the crowd when he heard the sound of a flute. He saw a group of people fleeing from the wastelands, bringing their wives and children with them, playing the flute as they begged for money. Finally, he woke up from that fleeting feeling. Thinking about the drought and the plague of locusts in so many places, his mood worsened. Why hasn't Li Chang bought this restaurant yet? Someone should go and take a look. The young master's mood was ruined, and he couldn't bear to look at that family anymore, so he could only vent his anger on someone else. That person hurriedly ran downstairs. After a while, he came back and reported in a low voice, "Young master, Li Chang went out. I heard the manager of this restaurant say that there are 3 owners of this restaurant, and they need to agree before they can sell. Li Chang went to look for those 3 owners. Well, let's go, we won't eat here. The refugees can actually come here, those officials are all freeloaders. They deserve to be killed for ruining my mood." The young master in luxurious clothes said impatiently and led the way downstairs. The surrounding people immediately surrounded them. The money for going upstairs had been paid, but the money for the meal had not been paid. Moreover, they had ordered a lot of good things, so the manager didn't dare to stop them. Since he saw the gold, he knew that their identities were different, so he ordered the waiter to send it outside. When someone came to exchange money for the gold, he would ask for as much as he could. Otherwise, he would have to pay for it. Naturally, the waiter on the roof went up to clean up. Seeing that the dishes were basically untouched and that they drank a lot of wine, he sighed at the extravagance of the rich. The 2 waiters put away the dishes that could not be left behind. waiting to eat together in the evening. When they looked at the dishes that could not be left behind, they shook their heads and could only eat 2 mouthfuls and throw them away. They didn't dare to continue to sell things to others like other small stores. The owner had already given a death order that they could not earn money. Just as they were feeling regretful, they heard the sound of a flute coming from below. They looked up and saw a family of 4 fleeing here. The youngest child was on the man's back, and the woman was leading a 6 or 7 years old little girl. They looked pitiful. Looking at each other, the 2 waiters finally knew how to deal with these things. There were also the untouched big steamed buns that had been sent up. Ignoring the other dishes, they put the untouched ones on the tray. They also took the steamed buns, 3 pairs of chopsticks, and a spoon. They ran downstairs as fast as they could to welcome the 4 people. Surprisingly, not a single drop of soup spilled from the bowl on the tray. Just as the young master brought people out, he felt a burst of wind beside him, accompanied by the fragrance of several dishes. He glanced around and saw the 2 waiters running with the tray. The dishes on the tray were very familiar. With his good memory, he could even remember the names of the dishes: oyster and winter melon soup, fresh mixed bamboo shoots, steamed beef marrow, shrimp tofu, 3 dishes and 1 soup. Young master, those are the dishes we ordered up there. They can't even leave these dishes. Do they want to sell them to those 4 people? A servant at the side also saw the dishes clearly and said to the young master, "Get out of my way, are you stupid? Do those 4 people have the money to buy anything? If I knew this would happen, I would have sent them myself. At least they would be grateful. If my father knew, he would praise me even more. Between the clouds and the water restaurant is not bad." The young master glared at the servant next to him. He regretted that he didn't personally give the dishes to them. "It is not bad. Young master is amazing. You can see it with one look. The people in the restaurant are kind." After being scolded, the servant quickly continued to flatter. "You stay away from me. Learn more from Li Cheng in the future. What does kindness have to do with me? The disaster victims will be taken care of by the imperial court. What I mean is that the restaurant didn't sell the untouched dishes to others. Otherwise, why would they give them to the refugees? You must buy them." The young master glared at the servant again. The servant said the wrong thing twice in a row. Finally, he didn't dare to comment anymore. He said to the young master, "Then let's go back. You like the pond here? Let's dig one that is bigger than theirs." "Wait, let's take a look first. When we go back, we can tell my father what happened here. Otherwise, if I don't know anything, I will be scolded. If I am scolded, you will be beaten." Yes, young master is right. Let's take a look. If we don't get beaten, then let's take a look here." When the servant heard that he would be beaten, he trembled and continued to agree. This time, the young master didn't pay any attention to him at all. He walked straight ahead. By the time he got close, the family of 4 had already understood the intentions of the 2 workers. The food was for them to eat. They pulled their children to kneel and kowtow to the young master, but the 2 workers kept stopping them. When one of the servants saw the young master with a different identity leading a group of people over, he quickly said to the 4 people, "Don't thank us. This was all ordered by the young master. He asked us to specially prepare the dishes and send them over. Look, the dishes were just done." After hearing the servant's words, the 4 people also turned their heads to look. At first glance, they knew that the young man was from a rich family and didn't care about other things. They turned around and knelt in front of those people again. They kowtowed to them from a distance and said words of gratitude. This young master originally wanted to see the situation here. When he went back, he would have something to say when his family asked him. When he saw this situation and heard the words of gratitude from the 4 people, he suddenly felt good again. He asked someone to help the family up and said, "No need, no need. There's no need to be like this, there's no need to be like this. It's all because of this disaster. Get up and eat first. Look at this child. Servant, go and ask them to send a bowl of white fungus bird's nest soup. Put it under my name. Young master is kind and righteous. I'll go now." When we were upstairs just now, if it wasn't for young master's words, I really wouldn't have known that someone fled here. The servant naturally knew what to say and what not to say at this time, so he ran back. The family of 4 was helped up. They found a stone and put the food on it. Under the gaze of everyone, they ate. The child on their back was too small, so he could only eat something soft. The soup and bone marrow were given to him. The little girl was the most sensible. She let her parents eat first. She ate a steamed bun and took care of her brother. While eating, she looked at the young master standing in front of her gratefully and smiled shyly. When others saw this, they didn't feel much. They had already known the hardships of the world. Only the young master, who encountered this kind of thing for the first time, didn't know what to say when he saw the four people eating. Especially when the girl with dirt on her face and messy hair smiled at him gratefully, he suddenly felt a little guilty. When the girl used her sleeve to wipe her brother's mouth, he was a little envious. For a moment he felt that he wasn't as lucky as the child. Seeing the child smile after eating a few mouthfuls, saliva and food falling out, the corner of his mouth also curled up. "Young master, why don't we go back first? If we're late and the housekeeper tells the Wang master, I'll be beaten." At this time the young master spoke again. The young master's smiling face immediately darkened. He stared at the person and said, "There's no need for others to beat you. When we go back, this young master will let you know what to say and what to do. 20 beatings, remember." After being disturbed, the young master didn't continue to think about this matter. He said to the remaining servant after lunch, "What should we do at night?" "Go get more steamed buns." The servant left and went to get the steamed buns. The young master said after dinner, "What should we do tomorrow? Give me some money to do some small business." As he spoke, he prepared to take out some money. Suddenly, he remembered that he only had gold, and he left it with the servant. Even the restaurant didn't dare to use it, let alone 4 fugitives. Looking at the people around, those people immediately began to take out money from their bodies. Some took out a silver bean and some took out 1 or 2 copper coins. The 4 people avoided the silver as soon as they saw it. It wasn't that they couldn't spend it, but they were afraid of being targeted. They could only take the dozen copper coins. The father knelt down and kowtowed again. He didn't want the money, but he could stand it, but the child couldn't. "Young master, I still have some money." The person who was beaten just now took out a string of 70 to 80 copper coins. It was the most standard Kai Yuan Tong Bao. It was quite heavy. Who knew why he was carrying such heavy money? When the young master saw the copper coins, he was happy. He took it and let someone give it to the 4 people in front of him. He looked at the person who was about to be beaten and nodded. When the person saw that the young master didn't say to exempt him from being beaten, he had to give another idea. "Young master, you can tell them that they don't have to go too far if they want to do business. At night there will be a market here. The price of all kinds of things is fair, but they are not allowed to buy in large quantities. Let them buy a little bit of everything. At dawn they have to walk 20 miles to a place in front of them to sell. They can earn 10 or 8 copper coins, which is enough for their family to eat." When he spoke, his voice was not low. Not only did the young master hear it, but the 4 people also heard it clearly. They knelt down and kowtowed again. Fortunately, the man knew that he should thank the person who gave the idea. Otherwise, he would have harmed others. While the young master asked someone to help him up, he praised, "Good, this is a good idea. Then you don't have to be beaten. When you go back, you will receive 5 taels of silver as a reward. Benefactor, please tell us your name. We will definitely remember it. When we survive, we will work hard for you." The man of that family cried with gratitude and asked for his benefactor's name. My surname is Li and my name is Wang Sun. You don't have to remember. Live a good life. If you can't eat, you can go to between the clouds and the water to eat. Just remember my name. Chapter 133. This young man, who claimed to be Li Wangshuan's son, who was also a child, gave the surrounding people a fright when he said those words. Only when they heard those words did they calm down. Li Wangshuan wouldn't wait here to make people kneel and thank him. The people around him didn't dare to persuade him. One of them was almost beaten up, so no one dared to say anything. Just as Li Wangshuan was about to leave, 2 waiters from the restaurant ran over. One was carrying a bowl of white fungus bird's nest soup, while the other was carrying half a basket of steamed buns. The white fungus was also grown by pomegranate. It was similar to the fungus, but there were some slight changes in the details. Pomegranate was a professional and managed to grow it. Now she wanted to grow pine mushrooms. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan tried to persuade her, but Pomegranate insisted. Seeing how persistent she was, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan let her do it. If she could grow pine mushrooms and pomegranates, Zhang Xiaobao would dare to ask her to get reticulated mushrooms. Not to mention this era, even back then the price of reticulated mushrooms was the highest. Wild ones were even priceless, unlike other mushrooms that were sold by kilograms. Although there were 3 dishes and 1 soup, as well as many steamed buns, all of it had been finished by the 4 of them. Not even the soup was left. The child digested the food very quickly. He had just been fed some soup. This moment he peed. His small eyes looked at the new thing that was brought over. Being carried by his sister, he stretched out his arms and opened his small hands to grab it. Quick, waiter, feed the child. Let me see if everything in this bowl is good. Li Wangxuan had never felt this way before. The more he looked at the child, the more he liked him. He asked the waiter to bring the soup over, but he was afraid that the waiter would cheat him. He went closer to take a look and found that everything was good. Only then did he feel relieved. The older sister hugged her younger brother, wiping her tears as she thanked Li Wangxuan. She could imagine how much the soup was worth just by hearing its name. Not to mention the fact that they could eat it when they were escaping from the wilderness. Even in the past, they didn't even dare to think about it. A bowl of soup could be exchanged for several years of her family's rations. In addition to the white fungus and bird's nest, there were also soft lotus seeds and rock sugar in the soup. It was sweet and fragrant. Children instinctively pursued sugar and couldn't stop eating once they took a bite. This had nothing to do with whether it was sweet or not. The main thing was that sweetness represented sugar. Sugar was exactly what the human body needed. It was a kind of genetic inheritance. The more immature a child was, the more they wanted to eat sugar. This time, without waiting for the older sister to wipe it with her sleeve, Li Wangxuan took out a handkerchief and helped the child wipe the drool from his mouth. When his hand touched the child's tender face, he couldn't help but pinch it lightly. Amidst the worries of the adults, the child didn't cry as he usually did when strangers touched him. Instead, he opened his eyes wide and opened his arms with a smile, letting Li Wangxuan hug him. Li Wangxuan wanted to reach out, but he was stopped by the people beside him, so he couldn't do anything. At this time, the person who had almost been beaten pulled a waiter over and told him what had happened. The waiter immediately knew what to do. "Young master, don't worry. Leave this family's matter to Between the Clouds and the Water. Between the Clouds and the Water just happens to be lacking a dishwasher and a chopper. Oh, the dishwasher only needs to do 8 hours a day. Between the Clouds and the Water will give the dishwasher a bowl of clear water pig's knuckle soup, at least half a pig's knuckle each time." When the waiter said this to Li Wangxuan, he felt that he was lying. Since when did Between the Clouds and the Water have to be responsible for feeding people? The wages were higher than other places. How many knuckles did a pig have? This was going to be counted as the main family's account. Li Wangxuan was happy when he heard this. He didn't know much about the lives of commoners and really thought that the dishwasher would be fed pig's knuckle. With one look, he knew that the mother ate little and didn't have milk. He wasn't stupid and knew that the knuckle soup had milk. He nodded and was relieved. He nodded and said, "And that's good. This young master will be back in a few days. If I don't see the 4 of them or find that someone has lost weight due to hunger, don't blame this young master for being ruthless. Make the knuckle soup better. This young master knows that you put a certain kind of seasoning in your food. Put in more." "Ah, salty? You still want to put in that seasoning? Young master, this won't do. You can't put too much seasoning, and even if it's salty." "What? You dare to not listen to this young master?" Before the waiter could finish, Li Wangxuan's face darkened and he shouted, "Benefactor, please don't make things difficult for them. This little girl likes to eat bland, so I want the knuckle soup with clear water. Don't put any salt or seasoning in it." This time, the child's mother spoke up without the waiter saying anything. She naturally knew what she had to eat for her child. No matter how disgusting it was, she had to swallow it. No salt could be added. When Li Wangxuan heard that the other party wasn't willing to eat anything with seasoning or salty, he naturally wouldn't force the waiter to do it. Wei Wei nodded and said, "All right, waiter. Do you understand?" "I understand. This little one will remember it well. You have to use clear water to cook the knuckle. especially the fatty ones. The waiter didn't care about who said the wrong thing and nodded vigorously. Waiter, you have to do as you say. Take this money. The one who was almost beaten took out a dozen copper coins and stuffed them into the waiter's hands with reddened eyes. He understood what this mother was doing for her child. Since someone had taken over the matter of the family of four, Li Wangshuan didn't want to stay any longer and prepared to go back. At this time Li Cheng, who was in charge of buying the restaurant, rushed over. He didn't even bother to wipe the sweat off his forehead as he reported to Li Wangshuan. Young master, the main family of the Zhang family and the Wang family in Zhuangzi said that they went to the temple by the Luoshui River to burn incense. The head of the Gu family in Zhuangzi fell ill and was taken to seek treatment. No one saw him. The housekeeper was there, but unfortunately, he couldn't speak and the restaurant couldn't be closed. So coincidental? Li Wangshuan frowned in disbelief. Yes, this little one has already asked 3 farmers in Zhuangzi. First they didn't say anything. This little one gave them a lot of money. The farmers of the Zhang family and the Wang family took the money and told this little one. Early in the morning, the main family of the Zhang family and the Wang family left in a hurry in Zhuangzi. So did the Gu family in Zhuangzi. Li Cheng had spent a total of 3 taels of silver this time. He felt a bit of heartache. After all, he had forked out the money himself. Li Wangshuan finally believed him. All right, when you go back, you will receive 10 taels of silver. Let's not talk about this today. All right, come back with me. Tomorrow send someone over to ask about this family of 4. At the same time, see if they have good food and lodging. Yes, this little one understands, Li Cheng replied respectfully. While they were talking, a man and a woman came over to join in the fun. They didn't get too close, so Li Wangshuan's bodyguard only watched and didn't chase them away. He didn't want to make the young master unhappy. How is it? Did you see the ability of the Zhang family and the Wang family in Zhuangzi? More than 2 taels of silver was thrown in, and it didn't even make a splash. If it were any other place, not to mention Zhuangzi, even the people in the manor could be bribed. When we came in this morning, the carriage of the Zhang family and the Wang family was still there. After a while it disappeared. We can't stay in this place for too long. They already know that we are here. If I'm not wrong, they even know who we are. If we make them unhappy and kill a few cows, we can just say that we killed them. 3 Zhuangzi farmers said so. Even if you didn't kill them, you did. The woman was meticulous and could roughly analyze the situation from this incident. The man was bold and had good skills, but he wasn't good at such things. He said, don't be afraid. When the time comes, as long as we go through the authorities, we don't have to worry about anything. Today, we finally know that the Wang family's son is not bad. He knows how to help the poor. You only saw this. In fact, the ones who are willing to help are the Zhang family and the Gu family. When the servant came out, he brushed past him. Usually, if the master didn't arrange this, would the 2 servants do this? Remember, our identities can't be exposed. If the authorities know, then County Magistrate Chung will also know. I think they are together. The woman corrected the man's mistake. Just as the man was about to refute, he suddenly heard a rush of horse hooves. He turned his head and saw 3 yamen runners from Sanshui County. Each of them had 2 horses, and they rushed over from the other side of the bridge. As soon as they came to the bridge, the one in the lead shouted, "Hey!" reporting to the master of the Zhang family. At noon, the little Luoshui pier has been built. Congratulations, congratulations. Young Master Song has also ordered people to build 2 restaurants. Congratulations, congratulations. When the man heard this, he was dumbfounded. Before they came, they naturally knew that the little Luoshui pier was a place where auspicious signs were placed. It was in the county seat of Sanshui County. Now it wasn't even 5 yet, but it took them only 3 hours to come all the way from such a far place. It was almost 600 miles away. If the yamen runners of the Zhang family in Zhuangzi County could report good news like this, if it was an emergency, they could use the courier station that was 800 miles away. Do you know now? Will the authorities here care about you? Look at this speed. You didn't come from the yamen, but from the little Luoshui pier. The yamen runners need to know about the little Luoshui pier before they can come to report. How much time will it take? If there is any danger, I believe that they will report 800 miles away and chase after the stars and the moon. They will change horses but not people. The woman sneered and said to the man. At this time, the 3 people on the 6 horses had already galloped in front of them, leaving only the sound of horse hooves and the dust that hadn't settled yet. At this time the man couldn't say anything. It was too scary. This yamen didn't seem to have a normal relationship. Felt like it was run by someone else. From the expression of the yamen runners who just passed by, there wasn't the slightest bit of unwillingness to accept the mission. Then we only know so much. Let's go first? The man asked a little fearfully. Pay attention, pay attention. Everyone pay attention. The children of the Zhuangzi County of Zhang family and Gusan family can join the competition. There will be a prize if they win. At this time a child's voice sounded. Chapter 134. Anyone below the age of 13 and above the age of 6 can participate. This competition is divided into 4 rounds. The first round is a competition of a new item called the Rubik's Cube. The winner will receive 5 century eggs and a champion's medal, which is made with 1 tael of silver. The century eggs are a secret food made by the Zhang family's Zhuangzi. The second round is about historical facts. The winner will get a gold medal and 50 century eggs. The third round is about intelligence. The winner will get a silver medal and 10 century eggs. The fourth round is about calligraphy. The winner will get a gold medal and 50 century eggs. If the winner is also the winner of the 4-part competition, he will get an extra trophy with gold in it. The child's voice came from afar. Everyone heard it. The others didn't react, but the eyes of the little girl who was taking care of her brother and Li Wangshuan lit up. The little girl's thoughts were simple. If she could participate and win, she could get a lot of things. She didn't know much about century eggs, but she knew that since they were made with a secret recipe, they must be expensive. After selling them, she could make a beautiful dress for her mother and buy some good things for her brother to drink. She could also buy a beautiful hairpin to wear. Her brother's diaper was gone. It was ruined from washing. She could get some good cloth to change it so that her brother wouldn't feel uncomfortable. She could also give her brother some money so that he wouldn't be worse than the other kids. Li Wangshuan's thoughts were even simpler. After hearing the 4 rounds, he felt that he could get first place in 2 out of the 4 rounds. Which child in Zhuangzi would dare to compete with him in calligraphy and historical facts? This was what he had learned. Originally he was about to leave, but at this moment his interest was piqued. He glanced at the people beside him. Before the others could react, Li Cheng understood what the young master meant. He shouted at the child who was about to run over, "Hey, are you the only 3 people in Zhuangzi allowed to participate?" The child stopped and thought for a while. He said, "No, outsiders can also join, but they have to pay 1 tael of silver. That Rubik's Cube is expensive. Uncle, you can't. You're too old. I won't let you play. Don't go." Seeing that this child was about to leave with the other children, Li Cheng quickly shouted again, and then said, "Well, do you see the one next to me? Our young master is definitely not 13 years old this year. He is only 10 years old. Can he join? When can you get the Rubik's Cube?" The child stopped and turned around to look at Li Wangshuan. He nodded and said, "You should be less than 13 years old. Very well, take out 1 tael of silver. I'll say this first, 1 tael for each event. If you don't have the money, don't participate. If you don't get anything, I'll feel bad. Don't worry about the Rubik's Cube. No one has it now, but I can make some tomorrow. When the time comes, just come to between the clouds and the water to get it. Have you thought about it? You've decided on the money? I still need to talk to the Gu family in Zhuangzi." "I have. Isn't it just 4 taels of silver? Take out all the money you have." Li Cheng was not an ordinary person since he was able to become Li Wangshuan's confidant. He knew that his young master wouldn't care about this little bit of money. He called the people around and took out all the silver and gold except for the copper. He gave all the copper to the family of 4 earlier. At this time, Li Wangshuan personally stepped forward and took out a piece of gold and handed it to the child. "This young master wants to join, and so does this girl. Let's go together. Go to the restaurant and tell them to change the money. Tomorrow morning, this young master will send someone to get the Rubik's Cube. Let's go." The little child did not hold back and took the gold. He let the others go to the Gu family manor first to report the news while he ran to the restaurant alone. Not long after, he came back with some good documents from the manager of the restaurant and some money. Li Chang took the documents. Naturally, he didn't doubt the authenticity of the documents. Even if the three Zhuangzi didn't admit that the restaurant was opened by them, he would find a way to get it back. He nodded to his young master and the group finally left the place. They walked towards the newly bought Zhuangzi. When they were far away, the waiter didn't dare to delay and ran to the Zhang family's manor. When he arrived, he immediately looked for the steward. The gatekeeper knew that the waiter of the restaurant had important information, so he didn't dare to be negligent. Soon he found the steward. That person has already joined. His surname is Li, and his name is Li Wangxuan. He arranged for a family of 4 to stay in the restaurant. The other 2 people who were sent to gather information are watching from the side. They didn't come. The waiter finished his sentence and ran back. This information was quickly passed to Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. The 2 of them were watching the water in the swimming pool gradually settle and become clear. Xiaobao, do you know Li Wangxuan? Who is he? Why haven't I heard of him? Wang Wan bit a piece of orange in her mouth. It was so sour that her whole face twitched. She didn't forget to ask Zhang Xiaobao. I don't know. I've never heard of this name. Many people used to tell me about history, but they didn't mention that there was such a person in the royal family of the Tang dynasty. What's his name? Li Wangxuan? Just a small trick. Isn't he Li Sun? He's the son of the emperor's father's second son. Zhang Xiaobao thought about it carefully and finally understood. He combined the last 2 words into one word. He had long been used to this kind of thing and disdained to use it. Oh, I see. It turns out that he's Li Xian's son. He was adopted by Li Changyi. Is he a prince or? He's still the provincial governor of Feng province. Yes, it's him. He's the brother of Li Longji. No wonder his son ran here. It turns out that he saw the auspicious sign in Zhangzhe Zhuangzi. This is easy. We don't have to worry about how strong the opponent is. We just need to know his identity. Such a good thing. If we don't make good use of it, I feel sorry for the people of Sanshui County. Didn't he agree to participate? You want to play well? That's easy. I'll make the arrangements. This time, no one can stop the 100 households of the Zhang family's farmstead. Not even the emperor, unless he wants the whole world to know that he treats his brothers badly. Zhang Xiaobao pointed at his face with his hand and laughed. Well, you arrange it. Don't kill anyone. This guy is good. He knows how to help the fugitives. It's reasonable to say that such a person will be arrested by the government and placed somewhere else. After all, they have land there. He didn't care about this and directly handed it over to the restaurant. Wang Wan was afraid that Zhang Xiaobao would use some extreme means, so she limited the content and also praised the successor of Prince Shan, Li Changyi, who was the son of the emperor Li Xian. She believed that if Zhang Xiaobao wanted to, even if he wanted to kill Li Longji now, it would not be a problem if she did not interfere. The palace was heavily guarded, but no matter how strict it was, it could not be more strict than the mansion of the prime minister of a country. It was all because of Zhang Xiaobao that she fell ill. Once she fell ill, she couldn't get up and died 2 months later. Otherwise, there would not be an international arrest warrant for Zhang Xiaobao. It was just that the guy did not allow the people of his country to participate in the Olympic Games in the capital and beat up the torchbearers there. 3 days. After this incident, only 3 days later, the prime minister fell ill. This kind of means made all the country's leaders want to kill Zhang Xiaobao. Of course, most people did not know. This was a worldwide secret. Such a person had money and a perfect planning organization. Who would not be afraid of such a person? When he boarded the plane, others did not blow up the plane. It was not because he was handsome, but because they did not know that he used the most common and most profound name Zhang Xiaobao, a child in an orphanage. Except for the people of his country, no one would know such detailed information. Zhang Xiaobao gave Wang Wan a reassuring look and said, "Don't think of me as a demon. In fact, I am only missing a few pairs of wings. I am an angel, really. Yes, I admit. A fallen angel. If you are kind, you are willing to help all the people you want to help and make them thank you for the rest of their lives. If you are evil, you can easily kill anyone you want to kill and make them fear you for the rest of their lives." When Wang Wan heard Zhang Xiaobao's words, she curled her lips and gave Zhang Xiaobao a false conclusion. Zhang Xiaobao did not care at all. That is why I am a real person. I have flaws and strengths. I have loved and hated. I have no regrets. In this life, I have been here. Well, anyway, don't try to lie to me. I don't mind killing a liar if necessary. You are willing to kill me? Do you think you can kill me? Zhang Xiaobao asked. I will commit suicide, Wang Wan replied. I won't lie to you. If you die, who will I find to talk to in the future? Liars will also be lonely. Really? Zhang Xiaobao immediately compromised. Just like how Wang Wan did not dare to imagine losing him one day, he did not want to lose Wang Wan. It had nothing to do with love. The main thing was that the two of them understood the same world. If they were really gone, who would listen to the broken string? He could not talk about finance, currency, phase law, why Yao Yao exploded, nor could he talk about idealism and materialism. It was the saddest thing to not have a person who could understand him. Don't raise your hand. Alright, you don't have to raise your hand to swear. I don't believe in this. Hurry up and find someone to make a Rubik's Cube. They'll be here tomorrow. If I had known this would happen, I would have studied military engineering. I would have made a sniper rifle with a range of 1,500 meters. I can kill whoever I want. Wang Wan saw Zhang Xiaobao actually raised his hand and looked like he was going to swear. She suddenly laughed. He said he was not going to lie, but he had already started. Well, okay, I'll arrange it. Just this method alone won't be enough to deal with that brat. We need to take out something else. Is Xiao Qiao so easy to cross? Zhang Xiaobao put down his hand and laughed. Chapter 135. Groups of dragonflies were flying close to the ground, or circling around the pond. Occasionally, they would touch the surface of the water, and when circles of ripples appeared in the pond, they would nimbly circle around a lotus leaf and fly away without a trace. The dry sand ground was emitting heat, making people feel absent-minded. The sound of cicadas kept buzzing. Wei Wei curled up the leaves that were covered with a layer of soil. Some insects living on the leaves were afraid of heat, so they spat out countless bubbles to wrap themselves in them. The old yellow dog stretched out its tongue and ran to the water basin to lick it a few times. Then it hid under the big locust tree and lay down in the short shadow. It stretched its paws forward, put its head on them and squinted its eyes. Occasionally, it would look at the unscrupulous chickens in front of it. The fat house cat jumped to the window and curled itself into a ball. Even when the door was opened, it still did not move. The little swallow followed its parents out to look for food. It ate dragonflies and the insects that dragonflies ate. The old yellow dog stood firmly in the circle and looked at the things around it blankly, as if it was recalling the road it had walked. Only its tail kept swinging to drive away the mosquitoes and flies that wanted to come and take advantage of it. Along with the ringing of the bell, it was time for the children who had been studying for 3.5 hours to rest. There was still 3.5 hours before lunch, but the children had already sat in their seats and waited. After a while, someone brought them food. A small bowl of goat's milk exuded the smell of food. There were 2 vegetable buns on the plate and a fried yellow poached egg. This was their lunch break. Originally, they had to do exercises during the break. Later, they found that they were helping at home, playing in the mountains and swimming in the water, so this was removed. Before eating, the headmaster admonished, one meal after another. Think about how hard it is to come by. The children promised in unison that they would study hard in the future and repay the headmaster. Then they began to eat. The headmaster smiled and nodded at the side, reading a book in his hand. Occasionally, he would drink the green bean soup provided by the headmaster to cool down. In the swimming pool in the courtyard of the Zhang family, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan were lying in it. Their faces were covered with a lotus leaf. Pomegranate, who had finished her work, found a small bench and sat aside to watch. She held a book in her hand and occasionally yawned. These days she had been thinking about how to plant mushrooms. She was exhausted, but there was no progress. Xiaobao, do you think my family will be able to get some rewards this time? For example, like your family, you can get some food or something, and you can also relax quickly. Wang Wan's voice came from under a lotus leaf. After waiting for a few seconds and seeing that Zhang Xiaobao did not respond, she reached out and touched him. Zhang Xiaobao's body immediately sank into the water. Seeing that the water was about to enter his mouth, he quickly moved and lay down again. Unexpectedly, he fell asleep. Wang Wan had no choice but to repeat her words. "Oh, you ask about this? It should be. After all, those grains and poultry were in the name of the Zhang family and Wang family. After so much effort, there should be something in return. The imperial court can't disappoint the people. I just had a dream. In the dream, the 6 ponds here are all connected together. There are several small bridges in the manor, and there are people rocking boats in the water. They are humming tunes while picking lotus seeds in the ponds. There are many small fish swimming and frolicking in the clear water." As Zhang Xiaobao spoke, his 2 legs gently kicked, and his body moved to the shore. He pulled a wooden boat under the shade into the water and pushed it towards Wang Wan. There were snacks and fruit juice on the boat, but for fear of diarrhea, they did not dare to be cold. Wang Wan took a sip of fruit juice and smacked her lips. "Then we should design the waterway well. It should be high and low. It's best to directly connect the small rivers in front of the door to the ponds. The water should follow the order, starting from the first pond and ending at the 6th pond, just right to flow into the big river. Remember to pull the net, otherwise the fish will run away. We should also do a winding river. Along the small rivers, build a wooden corridor, and plant some trees in the open space on both sides. It's picturesque from afar and secluded near. As long as we don't occupy fertile land, no one will care. Even in winter, we can drink wine and enjoy the snow. Yes, we can enjoy the flowers in summer." Zhang Xiaobao echoed. "Get down." Wang Wan reached out and pressed Zhang Xiaobao down. At noon, the weather was getting hotter. Some people who had nothing to do spontaneously set up stalls by the small bridge. Today's new price had not been announced. Everything was according to last night's price. No one dared to break this rule, otherwise they would be chased out. Ergu hurriedly ate something and was busy again. He checked which stall was selling good food, whether the meat was fresh, and whether the food at the snack stall was spoiled. Did they wash their hands when they made the food? He collected the rent from yesterday. After all, they hadn't sold anything today. At the same time, he told a few stall owners that they had left too many dirty things behind when they left last night. He asked them to pay attention today and chat with familiar people. If a family's child could walk, and if a family's pig did not eat, they should go to the tea shop to drink a bowl of tea. When the owner pushed them, they should leave a small bag of salt as the payment for the tea. The number of people eating in the restaurant between the clouds and the water also increased. After Li Chang looked around for the owner's family but to no avail, he took the Rubik's Cube and came here for lunch. He went up to the 2nd floor, casually ordered a few dishes and iced wine, and asked the waiter to accompany him. The waiter naturally did not dare to refuse. He stood aside and poured wine for Li Chang. In his heart, he silently said what could be said and what could not be said. "Waiter, let me ask you, are you a local?" Li Chang took a sip of wine and a bite of food. He put down his chopsticks and turned to ask the waiter. "In answer to your question, I am a local. My family is in Zhuangzi. Including me, it has been 3 generations." The waiter said respectfully as he filled Li Chang's wine glass and put 2 pieces of ice in it. Then do you know what your master is busy with all day? Why can't I meet anyone?" Li Chang continued to ask. The waiter shook his head blankly. "I don't know. How can the owner tell me what he is doing? Maybe something big happened? You should be more diligent." "Then do you know what's going on these days?" "Something big? Yes, I do know a little. Master's family is very good. I heard that there was a drought and a plague of locusts over there, so Master sent people to bring food, chickens, ducks, and geese over there. The locusts over there are in trouble. You don't know, but the chickens on our farm are different from other places. They start eating locusts when they are young. I still remember that there was a chicken called Old Black. That guy is extraordinarily clever. No matter where the locusts hide." "Okay, I know. Lao Hei is a good chicken. Let's not talk about it first. Is there anything else big?" Li Chang was satisfied at first, but as he listened he found that something was wrong. So he quickly interrupted the waiter. The waiter stopped and swallowed. Seeing that Li Chang was asking him, he said, "Something else big?" "Yes, the old sow of the little swineherd in Zhuangzi just gave birth." "Guess how many?" 12 of them. That guy looks so scary. We knew that the pig wasn't normal. Could climb trees. That guy. That's right. Stop, I'm asking you. Don't make up stories. Whose pig can climb trees? Is there anything else big? Li Cheng didn't know whether this waiter was clever or stupid. Oh, that pig can really climb trees. The wind is strong and the tree is crooked, so it went up. Speaking of other things, I heard that a pier was built at the Little Luoshui River in Sanshui County. That guy, that place is so big. The whole mountain has been dug up. I heard that when they were digging they saw a big snake. That guy is about 20 feet long and no one dares to catch it. It just slips on the sand and runs away. That guy. Don't talk about that guy. Let me ask you, how is life at home? Li Cheng finally figured it out this time. This waiter was not stupid, not at all. He was smart. When he was asked about something, he would tell others. When he was not supposed to tell others, he would not leave out a single word. The waiter was still very respectful. He helped to move the food closer to Li Cheng and replied, "It's okay. My family is pretty good today. We raised chickens and put them on the cart to eat the grasshoppers. We also caught 4 piglets. When they grow up during the new year, we will kill one and keep it for our family. As for the other 3, we will sell them for some spare money." Sigh. I don't think your family is doing well. Those pigs can't be sold for much money. Other people will also sell pigs during the new year. It's better to find a new owner. Maybe it will be better. Li Cheng liked this waiter. He was smart and tight-lipped. The waiter shook his head and said, "In reply to your question, we don't need to sell the pigs. The owner will set the price and negotiate with other merchants. We will kill the pigs first and sell them at different prices according to different places. It's the same for chickens, ducks, and geese. Aren't you afraid that the owner will cheat you and deduct a part of the price?" This was the first time Li Cheng heard that the owner was helping the villagers to negotiate a deal. He immediately thought that the owner was trying to take advantage of the situation. So be it. Let the owner have a good new year. The waiter replied indifferently. This time Li Cheng was even more surprised. Could it be that the villagers in Zhuangzi were all idiots? They didn't even care about the owner deducting their things. Good. It was impossible to find such honest villagers elsewhere. Furthermore, they were willing to do so. Wouldn't it be better if they all moved to Zhuangzi over there? Hence he started to bribe them. You know that there's a new Zhuangzi over there, right? The main family of that manor is more powerful than your current main family. Even the authorities have to give them some leeway. Why don't you gather the people close to you and move there together? Once you're there, we'll build a house for you. If you pay a bit of rent every year, the house will be yours in a few years. At that time, if you want to raise chickens, you can raise chickens, and if you want to catch pigs, you can catch pigs. During the new year, we will reward you with a few feet of cloth to make new clothes. And what do you think? You won't be able to find such an owner." When the waiter heard this, he almost laughed. It seemed that the person from Zhuangzi did not investigate the situation here carefully. How could it be compared to the tailor-made Zhuangzi of the Zhang family and Wang family? How could it be compared to the owner's wife personally delivering the goods? Raising chickens? Where could they buy so many chickens? Chapter 136. Li Cheng tried his best to tempt the waiter for a while, but the waiter was still stubborn. "Are you sure you don't want to go? Since you know the past, I'll give you the best things. I'll give you the house, some food, and money. You'll be better off than the current farmers. Others will be envious of you." In order to pull the waiter over, Li Cheng promised a lot of things. After the waiter heard it, he poured Li Cheng's wine and said, "Sir, I heard a story a few days ago. It said that a shepherd saw a sheep in the wild and said that he would give it something good. In the end, the sheep followed him. When they reached the sheep pen, the shepherd really did that. He gave the sheep the best grass to eat, and the other sheep were envious of it. They ate the worst grass. In the end, the sheep left the next day. The shepherd chased after it and asked it, 'Why did you leave when I gave you such good things?' The sheep said, 'I thought you would treat all the sheep like this, but I didn't expect you to treat me like this. Once I become like the other sheep, when a new sheep comes, won't we only be able to watch it eat the tender grass?'" Li Cheng didn't expect the waiter to say this. After listening for a while, he asked, "Don't the new people in Zhuangzi treat them well?" "Well, but they can't be compared to the previous people. You see, I'm a waiter. But if I really fall ill one day, the master will find someone to treat me without spending a single copper coin. The new people need to pay a part of the money. If they don't have it now, they can owe me first. In fact, before winter this year, the master will build a new house for us. Last year, the master didn't have enough money, so he only helped to fix it. We have hands and feet, so we didn't want the master to pay for it. But the master said, the farmer has worked hard for the master, so how can the master let the farmer sleep in the open? The waiter was still so respectful when he said this, but Li Cheng saw a kind of arrogance in the waiter's eyes, which made him a little scared. It seemed that the Zhuangzi of the Zhang family and Wang family were not easy to swallow. Let's not talk about this. This is called the Rubik's Cube in my hand. Do you know how to play? Do you know what will happen when you play the IQ question? I can buy it from you. In reply to your question, this is also the first time I've seen such a thing. I've never played with it before, let alone an IQ test. Even if there was one, I wouldn't tell others even if I knew about it. The shop assistant replied decisively this time. Li Cheng had no other choice. He could only take the items back and let the young master familiarize himself with them as soon as possible. If he could get first place in all 3 categories, then he would definitely get that stupid trophy. He didn't know what was so good about these rewards, but the young master insisted on competing. The meal made him very uncomfortable. He didn't hear any good news, but he did hear some bad news. The Zhang family and Wang family's farmers in Zhuangzi couldn't be bribed, and he didn't dare to use his status to pressure them. After all, Zhangzhe Zhuangzi had sent so many poultry. If something really happened, that Yao Chong, no matter whose son he was, would still go to court. Others would be fine, but he would be sent out as a scapegoat. Even if the emperor chopped off his head, it would be a light punishment. Seeing that he had left, the waiter packed up the remaining dishes and sent them to the new family of 4. It was mainly for the little girl. The restaurant couldn't provide good food for her family, especially when it was ordered by the rich. The cost was not low. On the official road, a man and a woman were running, one in front and one behind. They were about to reach the Prime Minister's residence in Hunan Province. The two didn't care whether the horses were tired or not, and rushed to the Prime Minister's temporary residence. They jumped off their horses and ran straight in. Yao Chong originally wanted to go back early, but he found out about Zhangzhe Zhuangzi's matter. There were so many poultry eating the grasshoppers, so he had to stop. He didn't dare to take away this great merit. He wanted to know the details so that he could write it clearly in the memorial. When he heard someone report that the people who went to investigate had returned, he quickly called the two in for questioning. After learning about Zhangzhe Zhuangzi and Zhuangzi's matter, the two left. Yao Chong sat there and wrote some things. He let out a long sigh. He found a copywriter to accompany him. When the copywriter took over what he wrote, he also became more and more shocked. Darren, Zhangzhe Zhuangzi's business is not small. They say they are Zhuangzi, but they are doing business. Darren should do something about it. Who is doing business? I'm a proper farmstead and have always been farming. I've never done anything like buying and selling. Selling off the extra things in the farmstead is not doing business. Buying cheap things from other places and then selling them at a higher price is doing business. Yao Chong felt that the copywriter's brain was a bit slow, so he lightly reminded him. Yes, Darren is right. They are not doing business. There are more poultry coming later. How will Darren arrange it? The copywriter also reacted and said, this kind of business, as long as it didn't fall under his name, no one could find fault with it. On one hand, Yao Chong was happy that there were more poultry coming, but on the other hand, he was a bit embarrassed. An ordinary person with such a great merit couldn't be directly promoted to an official. How could he help the Zhang family and Wang family get some benefits without being promoted? Looking at them, it was clear that they wanted to eat food. Go and find County Magistrate Cheng. Yao Chong couldn't think of a way, so he had to ask the County Magistrate of Sanshui County to come over and tell him what to do. After County Magistrate Cheng came here, he had nothing to do. He was idle all day. Occasionally, when he was in a good mood, he would help pick the eggs. However, the other people who were in charge of picking eggs said a lot of unpleasant words. This was clearly a robbery. Darren, you looking for me? After County Magistrate Cheng arrived, he respectfully asked and began to ask about the business. Yes. Yao Chong held the attitude, snorted softly, and looked away. He seemed to ask casually, Zhangzhe Zhuangzi wants to keep the food and Zhuangzi of the Wang family also wants to get one. Don't count on it. I can help with the food, but I can't control the population and farmland. Do you know what they think? Ah, they don't care about the people and the land? Then they have to find it themselves. It will cost a lot of money, right? I'm also in a dilemma. Zhang family and Wang family have done a lot of good deeds in Zhuangzi. The reward from the imperial court seems to be a bit too much, right? When County Magistrate Chang saw that the Prime Minister had relented, he was happy, but his face showed that he was in a dilemma. He wanted to help the Zhang family and Wang family to get more benefits in Zhuangzi. Oh, this is indeed a difficult thing to do. Why don't we let them come here and see if any of the victims are willing to go elsewhere? But we can't give them the land. For the first time, Yao Chong showed a difficult expression to County Magistrate Chang. He also knew that if he were Zhangzhe Zhuangzi's people, he wouldn't be happy either. He wasn't an ordinary person who didn't know anything. Naturally, he knew the importance of benefits. After he finished speaking, he stared at County Magistrate Chang. County Magistrate Chang held back his happiness and said, "You're right, sir. Zhangzhe Zhuangzi should think of a way themselves. They can't ask for benefits from the imperial court after getting nearly 10,000 poultry, sending hundreds of thousands of kilograms of grain, and bringing 20,000 poultry back with carts. They can't think too much when doing good deeds." In fact, his words made it clear that no matter how much Zhuangzi had done, whether the Zhang family and Wang family wanted the Zhuangzi's land or not, and whether the imperial court gave it to them were two different matters. Yao Chong was a little unhappy with County Magistrate Chang's subtle threat, but he couldn't say anything. Suddenly, he thought of what the two people had said when they came back, so he said to County Magistrate Chang, "I heard that the farmers in Zhuangzi are all protective of their masters. I don't know what methods the Zhang family and Wang family used. Could it be that they pressured others when signing the contract?" Yao Chong showed a thoughtful expression as he spoke. County Magistrate Chang admired the Prime Minister from the bottom of his heart. Since he had sent people to investigate, of course, he would know why those farmers were protective of their masters. He was not an ordinary person to ask such a question. The Prime Minister was indeed the Prime Minister. "Sir, I've never heard of the Zhang family and Wang family's Zhuangzi deceiving others to sign the contract. Maybe it's because of generations. If Sir still has concerns, why don't I go back to investigate and report to you when I come back?" "That's not necessary. I believe that they will help with the disaster relief and will not treat the farmers unfairly. There must be some jealous people spreading rumors. Well, I'm going to report this matter truthfully. When the time comes, County Magistrate Chang will testify. It's already late. Why don't you stay and have dinner with me?" Yao Chong had already found out from the two men that the Yamen of Sanshui County was like their own to the Zhang and Wang family. They could even use a 600 li express to deliver good news. If there was really a small matter, then it would be a 800 li express ride, 60 li on the official road and 40 li on the small road, with a change of horses. County Magistrate Chang hurriedly said that he still had something to deal with and got up to leave. He didn't think that the Prime Minister wanted to invite him to dinner. "Li Cheng, find me more people to figure out this thing. Why is it so difficult? I've been looking at it for so long but only one side. There are 6 sides in total." In the newly bought Zhuangzi, Li Sun was fiddling with the Rubik's Cube in his hand. He thought that he was smart, but he only managed to figure out one side after a long time. The other 5 sides didn't match at all. If it weren't for the fact that the 6 sides were so neat when he brought it here, he would have thought that he was deceived. Li Cheng was not familiar with this thing, so he could only agree to go out and find people. Ordinary people couldn't do it. Whoever solved the 9 chain rings the fastest would be the one to try. He didn't know who came up with this thing. When Li Cheng went to find people, Li Sun put down the Rubik's Cube and began to think about intelligence questions. He didn't know what intelligence questions were. He thought that it was nothing more than a test to see whose brain was still useful. He found a few people and asked them to ask him some questions. It shouldn't be too difficult. After all, the little boy on the Zhuangzi couldn't know too many things. When the people found couldn't stump him, he was finally happy. He thought that this time he could definitely bring back a trophy and show it to his father. Chapter 137. 2 days later, the poultry from the Zhang and Wang families' farmsteads were transported to their destination. Along the way there was no lack of worry. Not only did they need to be fed, but they also needed to be fed. These poultry did not have a common owner, and they were not so well behaved. Regardless of day or night, their cries could be heard. There were more than 20,000 birds in total. After they got off the carriage, they did not know where to go. The hens usually gathered next to the roosters, and the roosters were ready to fight with each other. Dozens of birds died on the way. Fortunately, there were no infectious diseases. When the poultry came, it was troublesome to make them work. They were in a mess, and if someone approached them, they would attack. When others were helpless, Cherries came forward. These poultry were all hatched by her alone. Especially when they were young, she had to take care of them for a few days, big and small, batch after batch. At that time she was exhausted. Just taking care of the eggs made her hands blister a lot. When the poultry saw her, they all wanted to come closer. She was their mother, even if they had grown a lot. After a busy time, the poultry quietened down a little. They did not need to take out the eggs anymore. They directly rushed to other places. They were divided into several batches, and there was food for them to eat along the way. There was no need to worry about drinking water. There was a lot of water on the grasshoppers, and a little dew was enough for them. Including those that arrived first, more than 30,000 poultry were scattered to several places in Hunan province where the locust disaster was the most serious. The local people who raised poultry were also grouped together by the government. However, there was a small conflict in the distribution of eggs. It was impossible to clearly distinguish the eggs laid by each household. There was often some quarrels. There were 3 roosters and 2 hens, and he insisted that his family could lay 3 eggs a day. He was only obedient after being warned by the government runners. Cherries did not have so much trouble. She hired a lot of people to help pick the eggs, which could be considered as more income for the people here. There were more than 10,000 eggs every day. Cherries, Xiaohong, and the others followed the young master's instructions and sold all the eggs on the spot. They could not be exchanged for food but other things. Wood, dried fish, shrimps, cloth, domestic animals, and some metal tools could be exchanged. This place was close to the Yellow River, and the other side was not far from Shandong. There was an estuary, so seaweed, crabs, and other things from the sea could also be exchanged. In addition to replacing the eggs, in order to urge Yao Chong to quickly get the credit for the 2 farms, he specially took 1/10 of the eggs and sent them to other prefectures to be sold. The money from the sale was directly converted into food and shipped over to be evaluated. Yao Chong had not returned to the capital, which was not too far away. He wanted to stay here for a few days to see the situation. More than 30,000 poultry brought him great pressure, especially the exchange of eggs. He did not understand, so he asked County Magistrate Chung. "Sir, are you looking for me?" County Magistrate Chung asked respectfully after he arrived. At this moment, he was not nervous at all, unlike at the beginning when the arrival of 30,000 poultry gave him a lot of courage. "Well, let me ask you. The poultry of the Zhang family and the Wang family can be exchanged for other things, but why do you keep looking at the things on the other side of the sea? 5 caddies of powdered shells and other smelly fish and shrimps can be exchanged for an egg, 7 caddies for a duck egg, and 10 caddies for a goose egg. Why do they want these worthless things?" Yao Chong heard that many people paddled boats in the small Yellow River to pick up these things that no one wanted and were ready to exchange them for eggs, but he could not figure out the reason. County Magistrate Chung knew the reason. It was to feed the chickens. Looking at the poultry, he knew. They were obviously stronger than the poultry of other places, and at the same time they produced more eggs. In the various markets of Sanshui County every night, there would be people coming to pick up food. No matter what it was, they would take it back. In the beginning, he did not know that this was arranged by the Zhangjia Zhuangzi. Later, when he saw that the market was cleaner than usual, he found someone to ask and found out that the bailiffs also helped to pick out the food when they were free. After they dried it, he found out that it was to feed the poultry. He knew it in his heart, but he would not say it. Otherwise, if others found out about this, it would be time to raise the price. The seaside was not his place, so he would not help them. Therefore, when faced with the Prime Minister's question, there was a trace of confusion in his eyes. "Sir, I just found out about this from you. Yes, why do they want to exchange these things? There is no place to throw these things at the seaside, so who would want them? I think that the two Zhuangzi are deliberately giving benefits to the people here. Perhaps they are afraid that the people here will suspect them, so when the time comes they will take these things back to make dung. County Magistrate Cheng's explanation did not satisfy Yao Chong, especially the last part. If they used the powder of shrimp and fish in the river it was possible, but if they really made dung from the sea, did they want to change the farmland into the middle farmland and vice versa? The salt was left in the soil. Well, why don't you ask them about this? I heard that some of the eggs are spoiled when they are transported to other provinces, so there is less food to be exchanged. Why don't they transport some salt from there and marinate it? The two Zhuangzi will have to pay for the salt, but they can keep some of the food and deduct the salt money. Yao Chong thought for a moment, then said to County Magistrate Cheng. This was a disguised benefit for the Zhang family and Wang family. The salt used to marinate things depended on how much salt a jar needed. When the time came, the price would be calculated by the jar. Because the salt was used to help exchange for food in other provinces, the price would be lower. However, after a batch of eggs was marinated in salt water, they would not need to throw it away. In this way, the people marinating the eggs could save some salt and sell the salted eggs at a higher price outside. They could keep some of the food and sell the rest at a lower price. No matter what, they would make a profit. He was the prime minister, so he could not let the people keep paying for it. When County Magistrate Cheng heard this, he was happy and quickly agreed. This official understands. I will go and ask them now and tell them what you said. You are really a good official who thinks for the people. This official is not as good as you. Yes, it is the imperial court and the emperor's favor. After Yao Chong finished speaking, he did not want to say anything else to County Magistrate Cheng. He picked up a book and looked like he wanted to read it. County Magistrate Cheng was sensible and immediately said a few words of praise. He left and rushed to where Xiaohong and Cherries were, ready to tell them the good news. As for the matter the Prime Minister asked, he would say that the Zhang family and Wang family were Zhuangzi, but they were unwilling to say. Xiaohong and Cherries had been busy for the past few days. They had to remember all the eggs they received and pay the workers. They had learned a little bookkeeping from the young master. At first they were a little unfamiliar with it, but later they became familiar with it. When they heard the news from County Magistrate Cheng, they did not dare to delay and sent someone back to report the news. At the same time they exchanged all kinds of eggs for jars and prepared to marinate them. Zhang family and Wang family were also busy in Zhuangzi. They had to arrange the children's affairs. Originally, they were going to start in 2 days, but none of the children could make 6 faces. Not only the children could not do it, but the adults also could not help. Instead, the Rubik's Cube was sold a lot. Zhou Shihu even came to ask how to make it and opened a few to take a look. When he went back, he would ask people to make a lot of them so that he could sell them to other places. When he made money, he would still mix them with Zhangjia Zhuangzi according to the ingredients. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan had been in the swimming pool for a few days. Today they finally did not go into the water. They found someone to start making a bath and prepared to build a sauna house for their family. The two of them tried hard to think of what stone to use, but until now they had not come up with a result. Forget it, let's not think about it. Let's try with the my fan stone. There is no electricity, so we can only heat it up with charcoal and let people pour water on it. Those children have not been able to make 6 faces yet. Should we write a method to remind them? Wang Wan really could not think of what kind of stone was, so she just casually used one. She felt that the my fan stone was at least not harmful to the human body. Then, she discussed with Zhang Xiaobao whether to teach others how to play with the Rubik's Cube. Zhang Xiaobao had steamed the Rubik's Cube countless times before, but he had never studied it and could not think of a method. He temporarily put this matter aside and said to Wang Wan, I think there is no need to tell them. At most it will be delayed for a few days. Since others can find a method, the people of Tang will not be so stupid that they can't find one. 5 days it will start in 5 days. Let's see which child can make the most faces in the specified time. That will be the winner. At this time let people go and find those scholars who think they are smart. Then let them watch and hold a competition for adults. The venue will be between the clouds and the water. The purpose of you organizing these competitions is to win over Li Suan. It's okay to spend money, but if you find adults, it will cost a lot. At first, Wang didn't realize what was going on. She was only thinking about the money. After saying that, she suddenly realized something and said to Zhang Xiaobao, "You want to use this to make money? Is it? I knew that you were up to no good. Let others give you advertising fees and rent some stalls. Let all kinds of people who sell snacks come here to promote their own things. Oh, it can be like this. Why didn't I think of it?" Zhang Xiaobao looked at Wang in surprise. Wang did not pay attention to him at all. Her acting was so bad. "Well, that's it. You are right. Now let's not talk about this. What should we do with the brain teasers? It should be suitable for this era and interesting." Zhang Xiaobao changed the topic again. "This is simple. Listen to me. A person is walking on a single plank bridge. Suddenly, there is a wolf in front of him and a tiger behind him. They all want to eat him. He fainted. Let's change to another one. It's easier to understand." Before Wang could finish, Zhang Xiaobao interrupted her. Chapter 138. Young man, do you think it's right? Oh, it's not right. Then I'll change it. It's not right either. Behind the Shuiyun restaurant, in one of the several courtyards that were specifically used for living, the little girl that was arranged by Li Sun was currently playing with her little brother. The little child had just been fed milk today and was currently smiling foolishly. He didn't know what his big sister was saying to him, but as long as his big sister smiled at him, he would smile along with her, and a lot of saliva would flow out. Once the food was served and the pig's knuckle soup was served, the woman had milk the next night. She held the child in her arms and fed him with a face full of happiness. She was in charge of washing the dishes and always washed every plate clean. She never needed to be urged. After washing the plates, she rushed to do other chores when she saw that there were others. She was grateful to that young master Li Sun for giving her something to do, but his status was definitely not low. Perhaps he didn't want someone like her to work for him. She could only try her best to do something for the restaurant. She knew the price of the pig's knuckle. It cost 1 pig's knuckle every 2 days. Even an ordinary person couldn't afford it, let alone a poor family. That young master didn't send anyone to ask about them these 2 days. If the restaurant wanted to deduct something, no one would know. She still had that young master to answer to, but no one would care about Lu Er. She had been eating good food these few days. She also knew that it was the leftovers of those rich people. Some of them didn't even touch a single piece of food. Wouldn't they take it and sell it to others? Wouldn't the waiter eat it himself? A plate full of mutton was sent over. If this wasn't a big deal, what about the clothes that were specially made? It was said that everyone in the restaurant had to wear the same clothes. She and her man wore the same clothes. Lu Er and young man also made clothes for them, especially young man. She was wearing a silk dress. When she put it on, young man smiled comfortably. Many diapers were prepared. When they were brought over, they still had the fragrance of flowers on them. They were specially made for them. Since he was being so considerate, he would feel guilty if he didn't do more work. He even gave young man a lot of toys. He even gave her a cart to teach her how to walk. It was a big circle made of thin wood with 3 poles connected to it. Below the poles were small wheels. There were a few strips of cloth on the circle, and the circle was wider when it was connected to the middle. He could put young man in that place and she could sit there without moving. She could also walk around when she wanted to. There was no need to be afraid of falling. This thing was too rare. He had never seen it before. "Sister Fong, help me bring 20 plates over." Just as she was thinking about this, a waiter in front of her called out to her. "Sai, I'll be right there." Hearing someone call her, she naturally had to go over. She took the 20 plates and looked at them one by one to see if there was a gap. If there was, the restaurant would definitely not use it. Unlike some small stalls, they would continue to put things in even if there was a gap. Waiting for her to bring the plates over, the waiter took them over and looked at her leaving figure. He sighed. "Gotsi, hurry up. What are you doing? Are you planning to do something to her?" A chef was waiting over there to put the dishes. Seeing him like this, he said, "What do you mean? I'm only 15 years old today. After I save more money, I'll find a wife in the future." I feel that his family is really pitiful. Fortunately, they met us. Otherwise, I don't know what would happen to them. That young man just started to put on weight these 2 days. She used to be thin before, the waiter said with emotion as he brought the plates to the chef. The chef put the dishes on the plates and handed them to another waiter. He turned around and said, "There are so many people suffering in this world. Can you help them all? The main family is still better." The one surnamed Lee left her alone. The main family heard about it and specially sent clothes for her. Today they sent the fattest pork shoulder. I'll cook it in a while and stew it until it's soft. When the time comes, you can hold your breath and drink it in one mouthful. Take some time to go back and check on the 2 children. Don't hurt them. Didn't the main family bring some pictures the day before yesterday? They showed them to Luer and said something like 165. They want us to treat their family well. The main family wants to eat and drink well. They also want to make a midnight snack for Luer. I heard that they want to find a doctor and put it in the restaurant. One is to check on people who are not feeling well after eating, and the other is to take care of Luer. If she's sick, she must be cured. Oh yes, there is such a thing. Master and I, please do it first. I almost forgot something important. The main family said that if you don't want the fruits, I'll send them to Luer immediately. I don't know what the picture is. I looked at it for a while but still couldn't understand it. When the waiter heard the cook's words, he didn't dare to delay. He got some fruits and quickly made a fruit plate. He carried it and walked to the small yard. When he arrived at the small yard, he happened to see Luer with her brother turning the Rubik's Cube twice. All 6 sides were correct. He was stunned. He was almost 10 years older than Luer and had played with this for a long time. At most he could only get 1 side right. He didn't expect that such a big child could get all 6 sides right. "Xiaoman, now I finally know. It's not too difficult. When I win, I'll buy you something good." Luer's voice woke the waiter up. He quickly walked over and gave her the fruit plate. He said, "Sister Luer, you're so good. You actually got the Rubik's Cube right in 1 day. Can you show it to me again?" "Thank you, Brother Gotzi. Here, you can mess it up. I'll show you. In fact, it's very easy. I've thought of a way to solve the Rubik's Cube. I'll tell you later. Come, Xiaoman, drink this juice. When you grow up, you'll have strength to work more and be filial to your parents." Luer saw Brother Gotzi coming over to give them fruits and juice. She smiled sweetly and handed the Rubik's Cube to him. She took the juice and fed her brother first. After the shock just now, the waiter remembered that Luer had just messed up 2 parts of the Rubik's Cube and got it back. Seeing that Luer didn't care about him and fed her brother first, he took the Rubik's Cube and spun it vigorously. When Xiaoman finished drinking the juice, he had already messed up the Rubik's Cube. He handed it to Luer and watched her play with it skeptically. His eyes widened. If Luer could really solve it, he wanted to learn from Ishua. Luer took the Rubik's Cube and looked back and forth. Her hands moved quickly. In less than half an hour, she had solved the Rubik's Cube into 6 sides in front of the waiter. She handed it over again and said, "Brother Gotzi, I just figured it out, so it's a little slow. It'll be faster after I practice. I won't play with it after I win the prize. It's not fun." Gotzi took the Rubik's Cube and looked at it carefully. He couldn't see any difference and finally believed it. At the same time, the way he looked at Luer changed. No wonder the main family was so good to Luer's family. He heard that if an ordinary person didn't know the rules of the Rubik's Cube, it would be very difficult for them to solve it. Luer had never learned this before. She brought it in the morning and it was still bright. In less than a day, she had solved it. What did the person who brought it say? "If you're not smart, don't even think about playing with this unless someone tells you the rules first." "Gotzi, what are you doing? Stealing Luer's toy?" Just as the waiter was in a daze, Steward Zhang's voice came from the courtyard door. Gotzi was so scared that he immediately stuffed the Rubik's Cube back into Luer's hands. "Steward Zhang, why are you here?" "I didn't steal Luer's toy. I came to give you fruits. Luer just solved the Rubik's Cube. Let me see, it's really amazing." The waiter turned around and explained to Steward Zhang. "Okay." Steward Zhang responded. When he turned to Luer, he said, "Miss Luer, don't you have any more toys to play with? The main family thought of this long ago and specially sent you new toys. This is the 9 linked rings. Everyone else is playing with them. There's also this which you can't find anywhere else. It's called Huarong Dao. Chow Chow is trapped. You need to use the least amount of effort to move these things and let Chow Chow escape from this place. The main family said that it would take at most 2 days. At that time they will send you new toys. At night, a father and son will come to teach you about historical facts. There are still 5 days left. When the time comes, the competition will begin. The main family said that historical facts, Rubik's Cube, and intelligence are all prepared for you. You can at least get first place in 2. The main family said that as long as you want something, the main family will do their best to give it to you. Tell me, what do you want? After the housekeeper finished speaking, Lu'er and the waiter both had different expressions. Lu'er didn't understand why the main family of the Zhang family was so good to her. She looked at the 2 new toys in front of her. The 9 linked rings seemed to be able to be removed when one was alone or in pairs. When it was time to put them on, it could be reversed. The waiter was no longer as shocked by Lu'er as before. He suddenly thought that no matter how good Lu'er was, could she be compared to the young master and the young lady? The housekeeper's words had explained everything. The main family was actually just the young master and the young lady. They were actually able to come at this time, and this was the moment when Lu'er had just faced the Rubik's Cube. Thinking about what Lu'er said just now, she wouldn't play with it after she won the prize. It wasn't fun, it was too easy. The young master and the young lady had even calculated this. The new toys were also sent. Compared to this, Lu'er was really nothing. Good. Fortunately, I didn't have any second thoughts. When Li Cheng came, I didn't waver at all when he gave me benefits. Otherwise, the young master would definitely know. If he wanted to beat me to death, the government wouldn't go after him. The whole family had an irrevocable contract. Even if it wasn't an irrevocable contract, it would still be the same. Lu'er, have you thought about it? This is the first time the main family has treated someone like this. Steward Zhang asked Lu'er again. Chapter 139. Lu'er's thoughts were interrupted by Steward Zhang's voice. She smiled shyly and said, I don't want anything. I just want my parents and young man to eat and wear. We don't have anywhere to go now, so we'll stay here first. When we have the money, we'll build our own house. I was looking at the 9 consecutive rings just now. It's not that I didn't want to answer you. When Steward Zhang heard Lu'er's words, he felt that he was starting to like this little girl. She was always thinking about others and not herself. However, she didn't know that she was the one that the young master and young lady really liked. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given her so many benefits. He thought about what the young master said when he asked him to come over and asked Lu'er, did you think that if you want to get all the rings you have to go up in pairs? That's right. Actually, it can be said that if you want to go up you have to go up first. If you want to go down you have to go up first. If you want to go up you have to go down first. If you want to go down you have to go up first. If you want to go up you have to go down first. If you want to go down you have to go up first. If you want to go up you have to go down first. If you want to go down you have to go up first. Lu'er nodded seriously. She looked at the housekeeper differently. She felt that the housekeeper was thinking the same thing as her. Steward Zhang really couldn't feel this resonance. At this moment he was thinking the same thing as the shop assistant. The young master and young master were really meticulous. They even knew what Lu'er was going to say in advance. Although there were some differences at that time, the meaning was the same. Uncle Housekeeper, I really don't want anything. Are you angry? Lu'er saw that the housekeeper didn't say anything after she finished speaking, so she asked worriedly with tears in her eyes. I'm not angry, I'm not angry. Lu'er is such a good child. Why would I be angry? Uncle was very happy. After Lu'er finished competing, there would be other teachers coming to teach Lu'er in the future. There would be some who specialized in arithmetic, some who taught calligraphy, and some who taught physics. When the time came, the main family would give Lu'er a few books to read. Lu'er, don't worry about the house. The master has already said that before this winter, he will build a beautiful house for Lu'er's family. He will also make winter clothes for Lu'er. As long as Lu'er studies hard. The housekeeper didn't dare to let Lu'er cry. The 2 young masters had said more than once that they had to make Lu'er happy. Why are you treating us so well? Lu'er was a little surprised by the Zhang family's care for her family. She found it unbelievable. Just because you are a good child. Uncle likes good children the most. When the time comes, you can go to the school in Zhuangzi to have a look. If you want to learn there, you can learn from them. If you feel that the teacher speaks slowly, I will specially find a teacher for you. Steward Zhang naturally couldn't say that this was the little lord's arrangement, so he could only find an excuse. Luer had a high IQ, but that did not mean that she had a high EQ as well. She only felt that the people at Zhangzhe Zhuangzi were all good people who helped her family, and they never considered themselves. Meng nodded and said, "Uncle, don't worry. Luer will definitely study hard and repay Zhangzhe Zhuangzi when the time comes." "Xiao Man, why did you pee again? Look, you have dirted someone's car." Luer didn't forget to take care of her brother while she was talking. As soon as her brother peed, she picked him up, smiled at Steward Zhang and the shop assistant, and walked into the house. Steward Zhang, of course, knew what to do. He looked back at the shop assistant and said, "Gotzi, remember to take good care of her family, especially her. The little lord ordered me to do so." I know. I will take some time to come and see her in the future." The shop assistant didn't expect the little lord to treat her so well. He nodded and left with the housekeeper. At the same time, he was thinking that Luer was indeed different from ordinary people. Not only did she solve the Rubik's Cube, but she also seemed to know how to solve the 9 consecutive rings at a glance. He also had a 9 consecutive rings at home. Usually, he would just mess around with it. He would either take the ones that had already been taken down and put them back on, or he would just stick a few poles together. Was she still a 6-year-old girl? No wonder the little lord valued her so much. She has such a high IQ. She is almost catching up with me. Xiao Bao, what is your IQ? Wang Wan looked at Pomegranate, who was making some rice noodles, and asked Zhang Xiaobao, who was reading next to her. Isn't it good to be high? She will have someone who can do things in the future. I feel that it is a bit unfair for such a person to be a talented girl. At least she should be a female CEO in several government departments such as the Jidushi. It's just that one is in charge of military and administration, while the other is in charge of business. I know you have a high IQ, a master's degree at 14 years old. I can't compare to you. I have a low IQ. Who with a high IQ would go to prison for no reason? I am an honest person. I just want to make a living. The food in prison is free. At most, I have to do some work. Sometimes you can't even find a place to eat even if you want to work. Zhang Xiaobao put together a lot of powdered seasonings. He was making 13 spice. He had learned this before. He didn't learn it in prison. He learned it from a person who sold 13 spice. At that time, he had just left the orphanage. After the flood, he heard the person selling 13 spice sang well and followed behind him. In the end, that person pitied him and brought him along. Later, he was hit by a car and died. The driver ran away. He reported it to the police. After they understood his situation, they ignored him. He knew that the person who had hit him was not an ordinary person. He had no choice but to continue wandering. As for what happened in the future, of course, it was simple. The person who had hit him was also hit by a car in the end. The car was the same model, and even the license plate was the same. In the same place, Zhang Xiaobao was like that. He would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. As an orphan who had suffered so much, why would he care about morality and the law? Who would show him the justice of the law? Wang Wan didn't know what Zhang Xiaobao was thinking at this time. She nodded and said, "Oh yes, there are more people with low IQs. Those who have been cheated by you don't have high IQs." Among them, there was a 26-year-old doctoral student who was a deputy minister. How did it happen? At that time, he was praised by the news again and again. Yes, it must be the tragedy of the education system. I firmly believe in this. Otherwise, why would that fool build a primary school in an area where landslides are common for political achievements? It's so far away from where the child lives. It takes more than an hour to drive. He specially built a road. If he didn't cheat him, who would he cheat? He only took more than 9 million yuan from the school, the road, and the school bus. Why would a person with a high IQ spend so much effort to steal such a small amount of money? Zhang Xiaobao disdainfully curled his lips. He sniffed the 13 spice he had just made, suddenly turned his head and sneezed. Wang Wan looked at Zhang Xiaobao's appearance and suddenly laughed. I believe you. His IQ is indeed not high. Who with a high IQ would smell 13 spice? You seem to have less ingredients here. You don't understand. Sneezing can ease the tension in the body. Who said 13 spice has 13 kinds of spices? I helped to sell 16 kinds of spices. Later he taught me 2 more. It's just that it's not easy to get them. It depends on what you cook. I will mix them according to different recipes. When Zhang Xiaobao talked about 13 spice, his hands moved differently. He took a piece of paper from the side and a small spoon to mix the spices. He put the paper on one side and began to put the spices on it. He swung the spoon steadily. He didn't put more spices on one side, more or less. Wang Wan was stunned when she saw his movements. She felt it was strange. However, Zhang Xiaobao not only moved but also started to talk. Winter is short and summer is long. You are always busy. If you want to eat vegetables and sweat, remember to add some fennel. You can pay for 2 yuan. I don't want your 2 yuan, but I want 1 yuan. Don't say that I don't put enough. If you eat too much pepper, it will hurt your stomach and intestines. Zhang Xiaobao seemed to have returned to the time when he was helping the person who brought him to sell 13 spice. His little hands moved faster and faster, and his little mouth sang more and more smoothly. Pomegranate was making noodles when she suddenly heard the little child sing something she had never heard before. She stopped what she was doing and turned around to look. Seeing the little child like that, she felt that he was even cuter. He seemed to be selling spices, but he could sing so well. Wang Wan opened her eyes wide. It was the first time she heard someone sing like that. She had heard a person sing in a skit nearly 100 years ago. She felt that it was not as good as Zhang Xiaobao's. Her every movement or expression would be seen by Zhang Xiaobao. He would immediately change the way he sang, making it sound so sweet. He was an international swindler. Who would have believed that he could sing the 13 Spices song so beautifully if he were to do so? As she listened, Wang Wan's eyes turned red. She thought of what kind of scene it was at that time. Other children were beside their parents acting like spoiled children, but Zhang Xiaobao was guarding a place surrounded by cloth. He sat there with open cloth bags in front of him. He looked at the various expressions of the people around him to see who wanted to pay and who was just watching. He tried his best to grasp the various attitudes of those who wanted to buy more, and those who did not want to buy more to pay more. You won't lose out if you buy it for 1 yuan. You can buy garlic, but you can't buy ginger. Look at my 13 spice. I'll give you a jar for 2 yuan. If you think it's still not enough, give me more. I won't bargain. Looking at the paper in Zhang Xiaobao's hand, he folded it into a funnel shape when he was singing, and it was almost filled to the brim. He knew how much profit he would make. If he sold such a big bag, it would be different from the boxes bought at the supermarket. He might only make a few cents. What kind of life were they living back then? Seeing how Zhang Xiaobao had already immersed himself in it, and how he would put in less of a few special items each time, and frown slightly every time he put in more, they knew that those items were expensive. It was really not easy to put in so much effort for such a small amount of money. Wang Wan finally couldn't control her tears and shouted, "Stop singing. I'll buy it. I'll buy it all." Chapter 140. Sister, don't worry. Others are still waiting on the side. Although the 13 spice is good, you can't put too much of it. Buy a pack and you can eat it for half a year. Half a year later, I will come back to sell the 13 spice. Zhang Xiaobao was still thinking about the idea of selling the 13 spice, so he didn't react for a while. With a special smile on his face, he added 2 spoonfuls of things to the paper. "Xiaobao, are you still going to make instant noodles? You only put these things. Did you put salt and monosodium glutamate? Stop." Wang Wan wiped her tears, squatted down and stopped Zhang Xiaobao. She stared at his eyes and said, "Oh yes, I am going to make the instant noodle stuffing bag. I forgot. I thought I was going to sell the 13 spice. Let's keep these for cooking. There are too many big ingredients, so they are not suitable for making instant noodle stuffing bag. When we offend an unreasonable and powerful person and have no way to live, I will sell the 13 spice, and I will definitely make a fortune." Zhang Xiaobao was stopped by Wang Wan. Only then did he remember that it was not the days when he sold the 13 spice anymore. Wang Wan nodded with red eyes. She touched Zhang Xiaobao's face and said, "Well, I believe you are the best. When the time comes, I will sell it with you." Who is Zhang Xiaobao? He is an awesome person who can summon the wind and summon the rain. Who dares to talk about money in front of you? Who is qualified to talk about suffering next to you? Do we still need to make the sauce packets? Let's not make this. At most we can make some dried vegetables and dried meat and put them together. If you want to sell the sauce without packaging and with ceramics, how much will it cost? If it doesn't work, we can put the sauce into the noodles and fry them together. Didn't we agree that we will make 1 copper coin for 2 servings? We can give it to those who have a long way to go. There will be no shortage of nutrition. Zhang Xiaobao thought for a while and proposed a new idea. He smiled at Wang Wan and told her not to worry. Well, then put it in the noodles. When the time comes to fry it, it will definitely taste good. You can't put beef in the meat and vegetable buns. Otherwise, you'll suffer a huge loss. Tell me, have you ever polished shoes? In the future, when I have leather shoes, I won't have to bother to clean them. If I want to find someone, I'll find a professional. Wang Wan also returned a smile and whispered to Zhang Xiaobao. She was too curious about Zhang Xiaobao's past. I've really used it before. When I was using it on a child who was about my age, he even gave me the new ice cream he bought. It was very sweet. It's okay if you don't know how to use it. I'll teach you. Zhang Xiaobao put aside the bag of seasonings in his hand and whispered to Wang Wan. No, I'm stupid and have a low IQ. I believe in you. I want to make a pair of small brown buckskin boots. I'll leave the maintenance to you. Wang Wan replied with a smile. At this time, Shirlu had already turned her body around. She was humming the song that the little lord had just sung while rushing to cook the noodles. These noodles had to be made into thin slices, and when the time came, they would be fried in the wok. She did not know what the little lord and little lady wanted to do. What was instant noodles? It would taste good. Putting the noodles into the pot to fry and then putting them into the pot to cook, then it was better to bring some noodles and seasonings. Why did they have to fry them first? She really didn't understand. Anyway, the little young master and his wife couldn't be wrong. It didn't take too much time for Pomegranate to roll the noodles into a ball. She took it to the kitchen, boiled the oil, put the dough in and fried it. After a while, the noodles turned brown and a fragrance floated out. She fried 20 servings in a row. After that, she emptied the oil and put it in a big plate. She brought it back to Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan and asked, Little young master, little young lady, the instant noodles are ready. How do you eat it? It's done so quickly? Well, I'll tell you how to eat it. You go and get a big bowl. It's better to get a small one and bring it here. Cut some braised meat and fresh vegetables. Don't forget the salt and MSG. Also bring some hot water. Zhang Xiaobao looked at the fried noodles and asked Pomegranate to get the things. Pomegranate moved quickly. It didn't take long for her to bring the things Zhang Xiaobao asked for. She waited at the side to see how to eat it. This time Zhang Xiaobao didn't have to do it. Wang Wan rushed to do it. She put the noodles into the big bowl, put the meat and vegetables in it, and finally left some chopped scallions alone. She let Zhang Xiaobao mix some seasoning and threw it into the bowl. She added hot water, covered the small bowl and waited there. The fragrance in the bowl slowly rose. Pomegranate sniffed and swallowed her saliva. She couldn't wait anymore. After about a quarter of an hour, Wang Wan said to Pomegranate, Okay, you can take the small bowl. Be careful, don't burn it. Put the scallions in, mix it and it's ready to eat. Try it. With the permission of the little girl, Shirlu couldn't wait to walk over and pick up the small bowl. She sprinkled a few pieces of scallions on it and mixed it with her chopsticks. Then, she took a bite and nodded in satisfaction. Little young master, little miss, this noodles are so delicious. There's a smell of shredded meat noodles. It turns out that little young master and little miss want to eat shredded meat noodles. You just need to tell me. It's easier to make than this instant noodles. Pomegranate's words made Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan speechless. Xiaobao, tell Pomegranate which is more convenient. I don't understand. Wang Wan pushed this difficult task to Zhang Xiaobao. Zhang Xiaobao had to prove the advantages of this instant noodles compared to shredded meat noodles. It was easy to store, convenient to eat and good to eat. It could be soaked in water, even cold water. Without water it could be dry chewed. It tasted better than fried noodles, and it was not easy to swallow. If conditions permitted, it could be carried along with fried noodles. Pomegranate was convinced by the little young master's eloquence. She felt that what the little young master said was true. It just took a bigger space and was more expensive than fried noodles. However, the things put in here were better than ordinary fried noodles. The most important thing was that this thing could be eaten as fried noodles when it was made into foam. Fried noodles couldn't be cooked as noodles. Moreover, no one would put this kind of dried vegetable in fried noodles, let alone match the little young master's seasoning. Little young master, little miss, I know. Do you want me to make this thing? I have to find 2 people to help me. The fungus has grown up again. Pomegranate suggested to Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan that they should help her. Wang Wan shook her head. You don't need to do it. I just want you to try it. It's the same as the dough. Let others make it. It's not something precious. Then I'll go find someone. Do I need to ask others to make the seasoning? Pomegranate was relieved. She could devote more time to studying the cultivation of mushrooms. Don't tell others about the seasoning. Let Xiaobao make it. Although there are only a few things, it takes a lot of knowledge to match them. Make more and send them to our own restaurant. These 2 things can definitely make the dishes taste better. You go find someone to make noodles. There was no way Wang Wan would agree to give the 13-spice formula to someone else. She saw that when Xiaobao was packing the ingredients onto the paper, some of the bigger bags didn't contain more than one side. Only 2 of the bigger bags seemed to contain more valuable items. This definitely wasn't as simple as it seemed. He had just randomly mixed the ingredients together. Especially after that, he kept adding more ingredients. When one was done, he would definitely add another. According to the bipolar theory, it was the balance of yin and yang. According to that scientific theory, the combination of these 2 things could neutralize the harm to the human body. At the same time, it was the same for the taste. For example, sometimes if there was too much vinegar, it was necessary to add some sugar. Of course, Pomegranate wouldn't refute. When she heard the order, she ran out. She wanted to find someone to make more, so that Zhuangzi would have another source of income. Okay, we can take a break. Let's go and swim. There's a child in Zhuangzi with an IQ of 60. What should we do? No wonder he studies so hard, but his grades are not good. Do we need to test the children in Zhuangzi? If there's a good one, we can poach him. After Pomegranate left, Wang Wan pulled Zhang Xiaobao to the back and asked as they walked. Zhang Xiaobao, on the other hand, did not look down on a child with an IQ of 60. Most of the time, IQ was not everything. Everyone had their own talents. It all depended on whether you could find them and whether you were willing to spend a lot of energy and money to nurture them. Let's test them. We can't bury the really outstanding people around us. Usually, it's easier to cultivate people with good IQ. That lure just wanted to give it a try. I didn't expect that she would succeed. The Shangguan family got their household registration and registered them as Zhuangzi. Zhang Xiaobao looked up at the sky. He felt that it was especially stuffy today. He said to Wang Wan later, let's find an old man and see if it's going to rain. Also, let's see if the ants will move. Then we can't go to the swimming pool. The ants in the yard have all been burned to death by your lime. It's good that it's raining, it's cooler. The ground is about to crack. We always sprinkle water on the ground here, but in other dry places there might be holes. It's a pity that we don't have the smelting technology and can't make a good water pipe. With what we have now, it's better to make a closed iron pipe than to drink water. It's too expensive. If we had that pipe, we could use it to heat the air in winter. Wang Wan raised her hand to wipe the sweat on her forehead. She quickened her pace, wanting to jump into the pool as soon as possible. 3 days passed quickly. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan gave Lu'er some tangram and other intellectual toys. Lu'er learned very quickly under the guidance of the teacher who taught her alone. She didn't need to learn how to write. She only needed to memorize the historical events. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan didn't want Li Sun to get the trophy in the end. It would be easy for him to become arrogant and feel that he couldn't compare to the children here. They only wanted him to get a single trophy. At that time, he would need to prove himself and move on to the next step. During these 3 days, the heavens finally sprinkled rain. For 3 consecutive days, there was no heavy rain. Instead, it drizzled continuously. The water level of the small river gradually rose. Everywhere was moist. However, the rain came too late. It couldn't solve the problem of the drought. Some people were even afraid that it would rain again when the food was ready. Chapter 141. Zhang Xiaobao stood in front of the window and looked at the rain that seemed to never stop. He muttered, "Now we don't lack water anymore. I wonder if those places that have matured earlier are like us. When it's time to harvest, they don't need to harvest the crops in the fields anymore. They can just germinate and wait to be planted. That shouldn't be the case, right? If that's the case, the price of food this year will increase by a lot. It's impossible for the whole country to have rain at the same time. It's just like how other places don't have droughts. The drought-stricken places have already failed, so it's not that bad. When the time comes, we can wait for the imperial court to provide relief." Li Longji is still a good person in the early stages. Wang Wan was also annoyed by the endless rain. It was mainly because the house was damp and they couldn't go to the swimming pool outside. It was fine if they stayed in the house and did nothing. If they wanted to read, they had to light up a lamp. Zhang Xiaobao felt that he was indeed a little worried. The lack of food had nothing to do with Zhang Xiaobao and his family in Zhuangzi. Naturally, there would be people who were worried. He couldn't just buy some food now and sell it at a fair price. He had already achieved his goal of seeking credit for his family, so there was no need to continue to worry. As for buying food at a low price and selling it specifically for the sake of benefiting from the country's disaster, he didn't plan to do so. He wouldn't be able to earn much money. It was unlike the food that was sold during the drought. The quantity of food was not much, only a few 100,000 caddies. He could take the opportunity to increase the price. If he wanted to make a fortune here, he would need at least tens of thousands of tons. It was easy to be targeted by others. If he sold too much, he would lose his credit, and he wouldn't be able to live in peace. "Xiaobao, why don't we use an umbrella to catch fish? It should be easier to catch fish at this time. I heard that it's easier to catch fish when it's raining." Wang Wan was a little annoyed by the air pressure. Seeing that Zhang Xiaobao didn't say anything, she suggested from the side. "That depends on the type of fish. Even if we don't catch them, we'll catch them in our own pond. It just so happens that after 2 days of rain, the ground is already moist. We can get people to connect the 6 ponds. At this time the construction is easy. We can dig a hole at a time." Zhang Xiaobao didn't want to catch it. He and Wang Wan could only drag a very small net, and they couldn't throw it far. They didn't know how long it would take to catch one on the shore. As for fishing, there was no need to think about it. If they met a slightly bigger fish, they could drag the 2 of them into the water. "That's a good idea. Let's see how many straw raincoats and straw hats there are in the grocery store. Give them to the farmers and let them dig ditches. We'll take care of their meals. Give each of them 3 copper coins as wages. Let the doctors in Zhuangzi make some medicinal decoctions so that they won't catch a cold." After hearing Zhang Xiaobao's words, Wang Wan agreed and immediately arranged it. The farmers were also idling at home. When they heard that there was work to do, the laborers at home all brought their tools out. They didn't care about the wages and food. Their only wish was to do something for their master. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan didn't continue to stay in the house. Accompanied by Pomegranate, they held a large umbrella and ran to the small river in front of the courtyard to watch the water slowly rise. Between the clouds and the water restaurant had a lot fewer guests. Only a few outsiders who didn't want to rush back in the rain continued to stay in the courtyard behind the restaurant. However, the market wasn't affected. It seemed that there were more people than usual. Most of these people were mainly here to sell vegetables. Vegetables were not afraid of being drenched by the rain. After getting wet, they looked more green. Ergu gave a slightly higher price and lowered the price of fruits. At this time, the usually sweet fruits were no longer sweet. When evening came, the rain finally became heavier and was accompanied by the rumbling of thunder. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan didn't seem to hear such a loud noise and still got up to study. Pomegranate also didn't sleep today. She sat at the door and yawned as she watched the 2 young masters study. From time to time, she was scared by the thunder and trembled. She only calmed down when she saw that the lights were on in the inner and outer rooms. In the courtyard of the Shuiyun house, the family of 4 had not yet fallen asleep. Young Man was always crying. As the older sister, she had to hold her in her arms, recite the things she had learned, and coax her younger brother. The 2 adults, on the other hand, were whispering to each other. As Wang Wan said, it didn't rain everywhere. In Hunan Road, there was still not a drop of water. Xiao Hong and cherries were calculating under the window. These days they had collected a lot of eggs. Some of them were directly pickled, and some were exchanged for things on the same day. They tried not to keep them as much as possible. Otherwise there would be no place to put them. Yao Chong had sent 2 reports in a row, but there was still no reply. He didn't know how long this matter would be delayed. He already planned to leave early tomorrow morning. County Magistrate Chung was also arranging for people to pack up and prepare to leave at dawn. After all, Sanshui County couldn't be without a county magistrate. Only the merchants who also came with food to get some benefits didn't have the slightest intention of leaving. They hated Xiao Hong and cherries in their hearts. Not only did they bring so much food at one time, but they also used those eggs to exchange for food in the provincial government outside to lower the price here. The people who came to sell the grain made a lot of money. These people wanted to get more benefits, so they took out the money to buy more grain. When they came back, they found that the local people were no longer as crazy as before. Almost all the local government had posted notices saying that a large amount of grain would be shipped over soon, and they should not buy at a high price. Erniu was not like them. He didn't listen to the young master and sell the food in his hands. He directly rushed to Shandong without any hesitation. He had more tasks. In addition to continuing to carry stones, he also had to go to the seaside to buy kelp. He spent the money, dried the kelp, and transported it back to Zhuangzi. 2 days passed quietly. While the children were waiting, the sun came out in the morning. Perhaps God also knew that the children were anxious. Last night there was a thunderstorm, but before dawn it became a clear sky. All the children of the appropriate age in Zhangwangsge Manor were ready. Each of them had a Rubik's Cube. In total there were 55 people. Some families didn't have children, so the adults came to watch the fun. Some families had 2 children of the right age, so naturally, they came holding hands and waiting for the competition. In addition to them, there was also the young master of the Li family, Li Sun. His team was the most spectacular. Together with the foreign children who heard the news and signed up, there were more than 80 people. In particular, there were 2 children who were scholars, who usually talked about poetry in the restaurant. The father of these 2 children may not have done well in the imperial examinations, but when it came to educating them, he was not bad at all. They started practicing calligraphy when they were 3 or 4 years old. Now they were 11 or 12 years old. After so many years of writing, they had a good foundation. The appearance of these outsiders made the children of Zhuangzi feel a great deal of pressure. They felt that the first place of the 4 categories was going to slip away from their eyes. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan knew about this situation. The 2 of them discussed for a while and decided that they would not take any remedial measures. It was good to let the children of Zhuangzi see how good the others were. Otherwise, they would always think that they were better than others just because they knew a few words. After seeing the gap, it was good that they would work harder in their studies. A small number of children who were discouraged could be corrected through some persuasion. The 2 of them were looking forward to seeing Luer the most. They wanted to see how she would perform this time. The competition was about to begin. The venue was the open space in front of the restaurant between the clouds and the water. Someone had already paved the ground with sand. The tables and chairs were neatly arranged, and the 4 treasures of the study were placed on top of them. The children were all sitting on the chairs, looking around from time to time. They seemed a little nervous. There were many people watching from the surroundings. There were farmers of Zhuangzi, adults who had brought their children from outside, and those bored scholars who were sitting near the windows of the restaurant. The first category of the competition was the Rubik's Cube. It was originally supposed to be a calligraphy competition. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan were afraid that if the children of Zhuangzi lost, they would not be able to show off their skills later on. They did not expect them to win first place. It was fine as long as they could perform well. On the roof of the 2nd floor, Zhang Xiaobao was being carried down by 2 servant girls in the courtyard. There were several ropes tied around his body to prevent the 2 of them from accidentally falling down. Today, the roof of the 2nd floor was not open to the public. Xiaobao, I heard that there are 2 children from outside who are good at calligraphy. Do you think that Li Sun will lose to them? If Li Sun does not win even once and becomes jealous of this competition, we will end up making a fool of ourselves. Wang Wan looked at the situation below and turned her head to give Zhang Xiaobao a look. Her lips moved as she asked Zhang Xiaobao. It shouldn't be, right? No matter what, he was educated in that kind of environment. The teachers he hired are also better than those from other places. Calligraphy not only requires practice, but also comprehension. He is definitely more mature than other children of the same age. Zhang Xiaobao was actually a little worried. What if Li Sun, this child, was too timid to win and did not display his original ability? If he really lost, then it would be troublesome. Future plans would need to be adjusted accordingly, and the effect would also be reduced. While they were talking, the competition was about to begin. All the children's Rubik's Cubes were collected and arranged in the same order. Then they were sent back to each child. With a command, the children all worked hard to turn the Rubik's Cubes in their hands. Some of the children were anxious. The more they worked, the slower their progress would be. Li Sun was the most stable of the bunch. When he received the Rubik's Cube, he first glanced at the others. He felt that he would be able to win this competition. The people from his family had worked together to figure out the Rubik's Cube. He didn't believe that others would have such ability. Both of his hands were fiddling with the Rubik's Cube. The strength of each stroke was just right. He would never let the Rubik's Cube get stuck because of his strength. Just as he was about to face the Rubik's Cube, a young girl on the other side shouted, "I'm done." Chapter 142. After this sound, the other children stopped what they were doing and turned their heads at the same time. They saw a little girl in red holding the Rubik's Cube high in the air. Her wrist moved back and forth so that the people around her could clearly see that she was facing all 6 sides. The mental fortitude of the children was not as good as that of the adults. When they saw that someone was the first to come out and the first place was gone, some of them could not help but cry. Originally, they had planned to wait for the incense stick to burn out so that they could come out stronger than the others. Now all hope was gone. Only 2 Zhuangzi from the Gu family were crying. The Zhuangzi children from the Zhang family and Wang family who had seen the Rubik's Cube turn back and continued to fiddle with the Rubik's Cube in their hands. It seemed that the first place had not been decided yet. When one of the people who came with Li Sun saw this, he couldn't help but frown. If some of the children from the Zhang family and Zhuangzi were doing this, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, they were all doing the same thing. This could only mean that they had learned something. Well done, this is how the people of our Zhang family and Wang family should act. When others have reached the end, they should still work hard. There can be first place in the Rubik's Cube. On the road of life, one should never give up until the moment of death. Xiaobao, it seems that we have succeeded. What we have taught them is not only knowledge, but also the principles of life. Wang Wan was satisfied when she saw this scene. These children made her feel that she had spent a lot of money to nurture them and that they had not failed. Only those who could endure loneliness and work hard, while watching others succeed, were the most suitable people for survival. Zhang Xiaobao didn't say much. He nodded and continued reading. Li Sun took a deep breath, but he didn't throw away the Rubik's Cube in his hands. He was as calm as ever, and his hands didn't even tremble. He knew that he had lost first place, but he couldn't learn from those kids and stop. If he did, then it wouldn't be as simple as a failure. He had his own glory. After the incense stick burned out, all the children who were still working hard stopped their actions and placed their Rubik's Cube on the table. Some only managed to get one face, while some didn't even get a single face. The one who was slightly better was Li Sun. He actually managed to get 2 faces and 2 lines. He was only missing the middle one. Usually, he wouldn't be able to reach this level. Under Steward Zhang's instructions, the servants brought out iron plates one by one in front of the children. Their names were written on the plates. As for those who gave up, they had also prepared plates, but they would not take them out now. Even if some of them had already gotten 2 faces, they wouldn't give them anything. Some of the sensible adults around them understood that these children who gave up couldn't compare to the children who didn't even get 1 face but still persisted. Ignoring the crying children, the second round of the competition continued. This time it was a calligraphy competition. Li Sun was as steady as before. When he started writing, his mentality didn't waver at all. On the contrary, the 2 children who were originally good at calligraphy had lost some confidence because of the previous competition. Even if they could write well, they couldn't write well. Luer, who had won the first round, was also writing. She had never learned how to write, and she didn't even know how to read. What she did now was very simple, and that was to stand up and watch others write, especially her benefactor. Li Sun had learned Wang Shiji's handwriting, and his strokes were graceful and strong. At this moment his mind was completely immersed in writing, and he didn't notice that there was a little girl beside him watching. Lu'er wanted to greet him, but when she saw that her benefactor didn't even look at her, she knew that it wasn't a good time to disturb him. She could only continue watching. When she saw that her benefactor had written 12 words, she turned around and ran back to her table. She picked up her brush and recalled her benefactor's handwriting, and began to write as well. When the first word was written, it was rough. When the second word was written, it was fine. When the third word was written, it was impossible to tell that it was a word. When the 12th word was written, it was like drawing a picture. It was as if Li Sun had drawn Li Sun's words, even though she didn't recognize them. When she finished writing 12 words, she ran over to take a look again. After looking at a few words, she came back and continued writing. Some of Song Jinggong's friends also came over to take a look. When they saw one, they shook their heads. When they saw the handwriting of the two children who had been relatively good, they shook their heads and said to the people beside them, "She can't make up her mind. What a pity." When they came over to Li Sun's table, they were stunned for a moment. They said to the people beside them, "She's getting a bit mature. After a few more years of practice, she'll be able to compete with those who have been practicing hard for decades." When Lu'er came over to take a look, the few of them followed her back. When they saw what Lu'er had written, they prepared to leave. This child didn't know how to write at all. She had no foundation at all. But just as they were about to leave, they suddenly saw Lu'er write another word. This time he had no choice but to stop. He pulled the person beside him, who had already turned around, and said, "Brother Gao Peng, look at this child. Look at her from the beginning to the end." After he said that, the others also became interested. They turned around and looked again. Lu'er was also paying close attention. She couldn't be distracted at all. She didn't know that her benefactor was writing the poem of the pavilion of Prince Tang. At this time he was writing, "How many autumns have passed?" The few of them watched her write. When the last word was written, before Lu'er could continue to look at her benefactor's handwriting, the person who was called Brother Gao Peng couldn't help but shout, "Good! You've learned well." From the first word, you can tell that this little girl has never written before. When you write the word autumn, you actually show some handsomeness. "Little girl, what's your name? How old are you this year? I want to take you as my disciple. Are you willing?" As he spoke, he started to ask about other people. He wanted to take in a disciple. This was a talent. As soon as he said that, the others were unwilling. They all fought to take in a disciple. Lu'er was scared. She left her seat and ran to Steward Zhang's side. Only when she pulled on Steward Zhang's sleeve did she feel safe. The two guards beside Steward Zhang were already standing in front of him. One of them happened to be blocking half of Lu'er's body. The guards that the young master ordered to take care of her didn't dare to be negligent. At this time, Li Sun finished writing the last word. He put down the pen and felt that his whole body was exhausted. Looking at his handwriting, he smiled. He didn't know what had happened to him today. Not only was he able to solve 4 sides of the Rubik's Cube, which he usually could only solve 3 sides of, but his handwriting was also better than before. He shook his wrist and looked around. He happened to see Lu'er, who was hiding beside Steward Zhang. However, he couldn't tell that she was the person he had helped before. Back then, Lu'er's clothes weren't good, her body was thin, and her small face was sallow. Now she looked completely different. Li Sun only remembered that she was the first person to solve the Rubik's Cube. With someone protecting her, Lu'er wasn't afraid anymore. She blinked her big eyes and looked around. When she saw that her benefactor was looking at her, she thought that her benefactor was still thinking about her. She pulled one of the guards over to Li Sun and knelt down with a thud. She kowtowed and said, "Lu'er greets you, benefactor. You're so good at writing so many words. Please get up." "You are?" Li Sun tried hard to remember who this little girl was, but he still couldn't figure out who she was. He asked in confusion, "Benefactor, I'm Lu'er. That day in front of the restaurant you gave my family a lot of food. You even asked the restaurant to take care of us. Benefactor, you're a good person." Lu panicked when she saw that her benefactor didn't remember her. After her reminder, Li Sun finally remembered that there was such a thing. Looking at her appearance now, she knew that the restaurant had taken good care of her. Her clothes were made of silk, her shoes were made of satin, and her small face was rosy. He quickly said a few more words and comforted Lu. The second round just happened to end, and the third round was about to begin. It was the IQ round. This time more people were needed. Every child had a person beside them to answer questions. If they could answer, they would move on to the next question. If they couldn't answer, they would tell the answer and move on to the next question. The children had never heard of such questions before. A person washed his clothes for a long time, but his clothes are still dirty. Why? He washed someone else's clothes. An object has 4 legs, but it can't walk. Why? Because it's a table. Such questions were asked one after another. Most of the children were dumbfounded. They had never come across such things before. The best was Lu. After answering 3 questions incorrectly, she finally understood how to answer such questions. She answered 6 of the last 7 questions correctly. Li Sun also finished his experience after getting 5 questions wrong. Out of the remaining 5 questions, he got 3 correct answers, ranking second among everyone. At the same time, he also felt that this kind of question was really too fun. He immediately called the people around him and asked them to ask these questions and record them down, leaving him to ask others. Lu won 2 rounds. Even if she didn't win the last round, she wouldn't lose. The rest depended on whether Li Sun could win the last round. He was first in calligraphy just now. The last question was about history. Lu learned a lot from the teacher she found. Before the questions were set, she wasn't given any reminders. The person who set the questions didn't know her either. This ensured that it was fair. This time, not everyone asked questions. Instead, it was a race to answer. The winner would be the one who answered. There were a total of 20 questions. If someone answered more questions, they would have to add more questions to those people. They would continue to race to answer until the winner was decided. At this moment, Lu finally showed the outstanding side of her high IQ. She reacted quickly and learned quickly. She answered 5 questions correctly in a row. When she saw that everyone was looking at her in shock, she suddenly remembered that her benefactor had wanted to speak several times, but she had snatched the opportunity away from him. In order to repay her benefactor, she definitely wouldn't snatch any more questions. Li Sun caught up from behind and answered 9 questions correctly. The remaining 3 questions were not answered by anyone, and the remaining 3 questions were answered by the 3 children separately. Just as Steward Zhang was about to announce that Li Sun won, Li Sun took off the jade pendant on his body and said, I lost. Lu won. Lu let me win. Lu take this. If you have something difficult to do, take it to the Zhuangzi of the Li family over there to ask for help. At the end of his sentence, Li Sun had already stuffed the jade pendant into Lu's hand. He found that Lu was indeed smart. He didn't help her for nothing. At least she knew how to be grateful. Just as he was about to turn and leave, Steward Zhang approached him and said, Young Master Li, Master has something to ask of you. He says it's something that concerns the people of Tang.